Chapter 706. Grandpa. Rina Takasaka's expression changed even more when she saw the item in the box. It was as if something terrifying was hidden in the box. It's not time for you to speak. Shut your mouth. I'm only talking to my little friend Gahan. Fleeting wooden fish pushed the box to Gahan. The item is right in front of you. It's up to you whether you want to take it or not. This is definitely the severed black hair. The fleeting family would never lie to me. They can't afford to do so, thought Gahan as he looked at the jade-colored dagger. But when he recalled everything that had just happened, as well as Rina Takasaka's fearful expression, Gahan understood that the box probably contained more than just a green hair cutter. There must be something else in the box, or something else. But what was that something or something else? What was it? He stared at the box for a long time, and his eyes suddenly lit up. He looked at fleeting wooden fish and asked, "Senior, may I open the item in the box?" Rina Takasaka's body trembled when she heard Gahan say the words "the item in the box." Clearly, Gahan had hit the nail on the head. Sure, fleeting wooden fish had a strange look in his eyes. If you want to open it. After receiving fleeting wooden fish's approval, Gahan first took out the severed black hair from the box and placed it on the table. He then took out the yellow silk cloth that was placed under the severed black hair. There was a small box hidden under the silk cloth. It was a very special box. The box seemed to be made of cardboard, but it was beautifully printed. Both sides of the box were printed with patterns that looked like blue and white porcelain. The main character of the pattern seemed to be an old man sitting on a wooden cart that looked like a wheelchair. The cart had two reins, and a tiger and a lion were tied to it. The old man was actually sitting on the cart that was pulled by the tiger and lion. The tiger and the lion were very tame. They were willing to lower their noble heads and become ordinary animals that pulled carriages. This is the Ghost Valley Descending the Mountain painting. This name suddenly floated through Gahan's mind. Gahan, who had always been calm, could no longer remain calm. Is this the real Ghost Valley Descending the Mountain? Gahan once again asked himself. Our Lun Yin family never sells fake goods, Fleeting Wooden Fish said indifferently. He was trying to tell Gahan that Guegu was real. Guegu went down mountain. This was one of the most precious relics of humanity after the Great Calamity. This Ghost Valley Descending the Mountain was actually a cigarette box, a limited edition cigarette box produced by a factory that had already gone bankrupt before the Great Calamity. It was originally a limited edition, and the manufacturer had already gone bankrupt. Therefore, it had already become extremely rare before the apocalypse, becoming the favorite collector's item for some cigarette case collectors. Following the arrival of the apocalypse, those cigarette boxes manufactured before the apocalypse had long since been unable to withstand the corrosion of time and had basically all disappeared. It was only when later generations found a perfectly preserved cigarette box from the Ghost Valley descending the mountain amidst the ruins. When it was first discovered, this cigarette box wasn't worth much and couldn't be considered a precious relic. It was only worth around 1 or 2,000 RMB. However, as time passed, the value of this cigarette box grew higher and higher, gradually reaching a price of 100,000 RMB. This was practically the highest price a cigarette box could fetch. Perhaps the price would continue to rise as time passed, but there was no such thing as a legend that its value would multiply by 1,000 times overnight. However, reality proved that it was possible. In a single night, the value of this cigarette box increased by 1,000 times, or even 10,000 times. The reason for this was because of the cigarette box's owner, the Golden Saint Sword Immortal. That was the most tragic battle ever fought by humanity. Due to Artoria's betrayal, the Martyr's Palace launched a frenzied attack on Yinjing City. 7 of the 10 monarchs of the Martyr's Palace took the field, and 2 of the 4 sages took action. On the other side, Yuzhong City and Yinjing City formed an allied human army. The two forces finally clashed at Kaishiji. Once again, one of the most important battles in human history took place on this ancient battlefield. The battle at Kaishiji was extremely tragic, and the most tragic was the battle at Taibai Tower. The Nazi King Hitler and the hero King Gilgamesh of the 10 monarchs of the Martyr's Palace launched a cruel attack on the Yinjing city defenders at Taibai Tower. At that time, the defenders fought bravely under the leadership of the Golden Saint Sword Immortal. The tragic battle lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, and in the end, there were only 12 sword bearers left in the entire Taibai Tower. The Golden Saint Sword Immortal, 3 spirit sword bearers, and 8 famed sword bearers. Just as the Nazi king and the hero king were about to launch their final attack, the Golden Saint Sword Immortal suddenly took out the Phantom Valley from his inner pocket. This was his favorite treasure. He never kept the Phantom Valley in his dimensional pocket, but always kept it close to his body. However, this Phantom Valley wasn't just a collector's item. The Golden Saint Sword Immortal still put some cigarettes produced in the future into the cigarette box. At this time, the Golden Saint Sword Immortal opened the cigarette box and was surprised to find that there were exactly 12 cigarettes left inside. The Golden Saint Sword Immortal sighed in his heart as he distributed the 12 cigarettes to the remaining 11 people. The Golden Saint Sword Immortal took a puff first, then said to the remaining 11 sword bearers calmly, "Today, we're just like these cigarettes, destined to burn out." At this time, any more words are just nonsense. I just want to tell everyone that our sacrifice is not in vain. After a few years, we will be forever remembered by future generations along with this cigarette. After smoking this cigarette, you could be a Yinjing citizen in your next life. After saying that, the Golden Saint Sword Immortal smoked the entire cigarette in one breath, not taking a single breath in between. The other sword bearers also followed the Golden Saint Sword Immortal's example and finished the cigarette in one breath. Many of them had never smoked before, and this puff of smoke made them choke quite badly. Some of them even had snot and tears flowing out. In the end, just as the Golden Saint Sword Immortal had said, none of the 12 people survived. They all died in battle at Taibai Building. However, before the Golden Saint Sword Immortal died, he also killed the Nazi King Hitler and severely injured Gilgamesh. In the official propaganda, the Nazi King Hitler was already dead. However, there were also rumors that the Nazi King Hitler wasn't dead. He was just hiding in a dimensional rift to recuperate. This was because among the 10 kings announced by the Martyr's Palace, the Nazi king's name had never been removed. This was because according to the rules of the Martyr's Palace, if one of the 10 kings died in battle, the positions of the 10 kings would definitely be rearranged. By the way, King Arthur Artoria's name hadn't been removed from the list of 10 kings either. Later, when people cleaned up the battlefield, they were surprised to find that the Ghost Valley descending the mountain cigarette box had been preserved in perfect condition. Inside the cigarette box, there were 12 short wills left by the sword bearers for their families. It was also because of these 12 wills that the Golden Saint Sword Immortal had carefully hidden the cigarette box and managed to preserve it. After this battle, the price of the Ghost Valley descending the mountain cigarette box instantly rose from 100,000 renminbi to 9 billion renminbi. At the time, Bai Xiao Jindi had offered to buy the cigarette box from the Golden Saint Sword Immortal's family for 9 billion renminbi and then store it in the Yinjing City Hall of Heroes forever. However, the Golden Saint Sword Immortal's family refused. Later on, this story was turned into an essay by an author under the title The 12 Heroes of Taibai Tower. It was then chosen as a language textbook for primary school students, becoming a textbook that every primary school student had to read. The Ghost Valley descending the mountain cigarette box naturally became famous along with this essay, becoming a testimony of an era. The price of the blood and tears of a group of heroes also soared from 9 billion renminbi to 30 billion renminbi, becoming one of the top 10 non-supernatural relics. Unfortunately, ever since the Golden Saint Sword Immortal's family gradually disappeared in the long river of history, the Ghost Valley descending the mountain cigarette box had become an unsolved mystery. No one knew where this precious relic was hidden. The 30 billion renminbi price on the Relic Exchange website was just a price. No one had ever really taken this item out. People even suspected that the precious Ghost Valley descending the mountain cigarette box had already been destroyed. Who would have thought that it would be hidden in the hands of the Liunian family, appearing in front of Gahan just like that? After thinking about it carefully, this was not strange. Wasn't it very normal for such a precious item to appear in the hands of the world's #1 family? Senior, what do you mean by this? Gohan did not know why fleeting wooden fish would give such a precious item to him together with the green severed hair. Of course it's for you. Fleeting wooden fish pushed the cigarette box and the green severed hair back to Gohan. You can either take them together or you can leave them behind. Fleeting wooden fish's words confused Gohan even more. Based on what he said, the Ghost Valley descending the mountain cigarette box was actually bound to the green severed hair. Gohan could either take them together or leave them behind. But why was that? Could it be that fleeting wooden fish thought that the Ghost Valley descending the mountain cigarette box was not precious enough? Grandpa, you can't. Rina Takasaka suddenly rushed to Gohan's side and knelt in front of fleeting wooden fish. She kowtowed and said in a sobbing voice, "Grandpa, you promised me. You'll return it to me as long as I complete your request." "I did promise you, but have you completed my request?" Fleeting wooden fish's words were like a sharp knife that pierced deep into Rina Takasaka's heart. Rina Takasaka slumped to the ground, unable to say a word. Chapter 707. Senior, I'm afraid that these two treasures are not as simple as they seem, right? Gohan's eyes wandered back and forth between the severed green hair and the haunted valley painting. Please enlighten me on the meaning behind these two treasures. You'll know once you open this cigarette box. Fleeting Time tapped on the cigarette box. Gohan picked up the cigarette box that was worth 30 billion yen and opened the lid. He was surprised to find a small note hidden inside. He even took out the note from the pack of cigarettes. When Rina Takasaka saw the note, her body trembled even more violently. She had the urge to snatch the note from Gohan's hand, but she managed to suppress that urge in the end. Gohan slowly unfolded the piece of paper and found that there were no complicated words on it. There was only a simple date written on it. July 6th, 2992. July 6th? Isn't this my birthday? Gohan was surprised to see the date on the note. It was Gohan's birthday. However, Gohan was born on the July 6th, 2990, 2 years earlier than the date on the note. Senior Lunyan, I don't understand what you mean. What is the meaning of the date on this piece of paper? Gohan asked again. Rina, I'll leave this question to you. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish did not answer the question directly. Instead, he pushed the question to Rina Kosaka. This is... Rina Takasaka stuttered for a long time, but she couldn't finish her sentence. This is your birthday, right? Am I right? Gohan could vaguely guess what was going on when he saw Rina Kosaka's expression. So, Gohan didn't wait for Rina Takasaka to answer and asked her directly. How did you know? Takasaka Rina raised her head in shock. It was only then that Gohan realized that Takasaka Rina's face was covered in tears. She was completely sobbing. It seems that this really is Rina Kosaka's birthday. That's right. This is Rina Kosaka's birthday. Before the apocalypse, there was a saying called the 8 characters of one's birth. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish suddenly spoke. It's a pity that humans have lost the method of calculating the almanac and are unable to convert the 8 characters of one's birth into a 60-year period. The almanac and the 60-year period were things that only existed in legends. It was said that humans in China did not use the AD to calculate time. Instead, they used a 60-year period called the almanac to record the changes of time. It was just that with the extinction of culture, no one knew about this complicated 60-year cycle anymore, and it gradually became a legend. Gohan originally thought that the Lunyan clan had hidden a 60-year cycle conversion method. Unexpectedly, even the Lunyan clan had completely severed this inheritance. This box of cigarettes was left behind by Lena's mother. Do you understand the meaning behind it? Said Fleeting Time Wooden Fish as he looked at the box of cigarettes with a complicated look on his face. I think I understand a little. In fact, Gohan already understood the meaning behind the fleeting wooden fish. I think I understand a little. In truth, Gohan already understood the meaning behind Fleeting Time Wooden Fish's words. In those articles, the 8 characters of one's birth were closely related to the fate of the person who wrote them. Not only could people before the apocalypse use the 8 characters of one's birth to predict a person's fate, but they could also use the 8 characters of one's birth to match the marriage between two people. In other words, once a person gave their birth to you, it meant that the person would be tied to you forever. It was a very important contract. He finally understood why Rina Kosaka was so excited when she saw the cigarette box and the note in it. It turned out that the box was closely related to her marriage. Since you understand it, it saves me the trouble of explaining. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish nodded. Then I'll make it clear. You can either leave the way you came here, or you can take this box and sever black hair with you. From today onwards, Rina Kosaka is your wife. You have to treat her well for the rest of her life, and you're not allowed to pester Ling. Do you understand? Guhan really didn't understand. What the hell was going on? Why did a wife suddenly appear out of nowhere? And I'm not allowed to pester Ling? To be honest, I feel that Liunian Ling is more likely to pester me. Senior Fleeting Time, I think you've misunderstood. If it's because of Ling, then I can assure you that I have no other thoughts about Ling. Please don't pin Miss Lena's life on me. Guhan returned Gu's cigarette box to Fleeting Time Wooden Fish and said solemnly, "Don't worry, Gu. Actually, these are two different things. Whether or not Lena is involved, Lena is going to marry you." Fleeting Time Wooden Fish paused for a moment before continuing. You can have a few wives in the future, but Rina must be your legal wife. You're not allowed to owe her anything. You must love her with all your heart and treat her well for the rest of her life. If Rina gives birth to a child, then you must make this child your legal heir. Your future will be entrusted to this child. Hearing Fleeting Wooden Fish's words, Guhan finally understood why Fleeting Wooden Fish had so readily handed over the severed black hair. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish was aware of his potential and was planning to share his future with Rina Kosaka. Rina Kosaka addressed Fleeting Time Wooden Fish as her grandfather, and the two of them might be related by blood. This was similar to the marriages between royal families in ancient times. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish was already plotting against his heir and was trying to decide on the position of crown prince. It had to be said that Fleeting Time Wooden Fish's plan was huge and far in the future. He would have to wait for a few decades before he could see the real benefits. By that time, Fleeting Time Wooden Fish would most likely be dead. This was a very long-term plan, and it was all about Guhan's future. But Fleeting Time Wooden Fish thought too highly of him. Even if he knew of his potential, his identity as the military governor in the game, and even the fact that he possessed the 9 swords of Black Heaven. But what did all of this mean? Did it represent his future? Who could predict the future? A small accident could kill a genius in the middle of nowhere. It was not as if such a thing had never happened before. Why would Fleeting Wooden Fish bet Takasaka Rina's happiness on himself? Well, these were all questions that Fleeting Time Wooden Fish should be thinking about. Gahan did not need to think about it. The only thing Gahan needed to think about was whether he should agree to Fleeting Time Wooden Fish's conditions. Through marriage, he could obtain the black hair that he desperately needed. Just as Cruel Cold was seriously considering this question, Gahan felt someone tugging at the corner of his shirt. Gahan lowered his head and saw Rina Kosaka's pleading eyes. Her fair hands tugged at the corner of his shirt, and her eyes were filled with endless pleading. She looked at Gahan with tears in her eyes, begging Gahan not to agree to the deal. "Forget it. I can do whatever it takes, but this matter concerns my future in marriage. I can't just give it away like this." The Fleeting Time family isn't the only one who has the black hair. When the Octagon Conference is held in a few days, the representatives from the Moscow Bay City will also come. I'll discuss with them and see if I can get the precious black hair from the Moscow Bay City. Gahan had an answer in his heart after he thought it through. Hence, he pushed the green severed hair and the Phantom Valley down the mountain cigarette box back to Fleeting Time Wooden Fish. He cupped his fists and said, "I appreciate your kind intentions, Senior Fleeting Time, but I cannot accept such a trade. I wonder if Senior Fleeting Time is willing to change the terms of the deal? If not, I'll have to return the way I came." Rina Kosaka's heart was finally at ease when she heard Gahan's reply. She looked at Gahan with gratitude. "I knew you'd refuse." Fleeting Time Wooden Fish shrugged, "But don't worry. Take a look at these things before you make your decision. As soon as Fleeting Time Wooden Fish finished speaking, a ray of light shot out from a corner of the room, projecting a picture in front of Gahan. Gahan took a closer look and discovered that it was a picture of a player's stats. Apart from the stats, there were many other data that should not have been revealed. The player's name was Carefree, which sounded like the name of a little girl. He was a famed sword wielder with 90,000 quarks of sword essence. His dungeon clearing record was at least S rank, and he was considered an expert among famed sword players. On the list of sword ladies, Guhan suddenly discovered that this carefree, famed sword lady actually had the words King of Yugo Jian Jian written on it. The player's famed sword wielder was the same as Guhan's, the Yu King's Go Jian. More importantly, there was a series of statistics at the end of the status window. The data analysis was very complicated, so I won't explain in detail here. In any case, according to the final data analysis, if this player named Carefree could synchronize with King Yugo Jian in real life, his success rate would be as high as 23%. Guhan's body trembled, and he noticed that Fleeting Time Wooden Fish was looking at him with a faint smile on his face. "Senior, is this player one of your men?" Guhan asked with a pale face. "No, I wouldn't have shown you this list if he was one of my men. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish may be overbearing, but I don't use such things to threaten others. Just treat this as a piece of information." Fleeting Time Wooden Fish knocked on the table and said, "Then I'll be a good guy until the very end. I'll tell you this player's real name as well. You two know each other in real life. His father has just died fighting for Yuzhong City." Chapter 708. "I know," Gahan nodded. Between intelligent people, there was no need to say too much. The person Fleeting Time Wooden Fish was referring to was Ku Rakin. In fact, Gahan could vaguely sense this as well. When he first met Gulvren, and Gulvren said that he had to coordinate the King of Yuzgo Jian's sword, Guhan had a vague feeling that this person might really succeed. However, he did not expect Ku Rakin to have a success rate of over 90%. This was not much different from a 100% success rate. Actually, Tianhen helped you secretly. Otherwise, your Yu King Gojin sword would have been gone a long time ago. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish then sent a document to Gahan. Gahan broke out in cold sweat after reading it. Who would have thought that Zhu Luren would go and coordinate with the King of Yu, Go Jian Jian? If it weren't for Sword Immortal Tianhen's new rule, the King of Yu, Go Jian Jian Jian, would probably have already become Zhu Luren's sword mistress. If that were really the case, would he still be able to kill Zhu Luren? I don't mind telling you one more thing. Tianhen's condition is to defeat any one of the top 20 sword wielders in Yanjing City. Only then will you be qualified to coordinate with the Yu King Gojin sword. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish waved his hand, and a video of Ku Rakin was projected onto the screen. Ku Rakin is very persistent. He has been challenging the people on the list since early this morning. However, I've already ordered the people on the list to avoid Ku Rakin's challenge. Otherwise, with Ku Rakin's strength, I'm afraid that half of the people on the list are no match for him. 19 of them have respected my orders, but the last person on the list has ignored them. He will definitely accept Ku Rakin's challenge. You can guess the result. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish's words stabbed into Gahan's heart. Ku Rakin was entering a residential building. Clearly, the last person on the list was staying there. If Ku Rakin won, then there was a 90% chance that the Yu King would be gone forever. It'll take me 2 hours to get back to Yanjing City. A battle between sword wielders usually ends within 20 minutes. If Ku Rakin wins, then he'll definitely head to Sword Tower immediately. I won't be able to catch up to him no matter what. If Ku Rakin loses, then there's no need for me to agree to Fleeting Time Wooden Fish's condition. No, these sword wielders who refused to fight with Ku Rakin did so because of the Fleeting Time Wooden Fish's order. If Fleeting Time Wooden Fish retracted his order, then Ku Rakin might be able to coordinate with the Yu King Gojin sword at any time. But I'll need at least 2 months to get the severed black hair from Moscow City. God knows what will happen in these 2 months. I can't drag this on any longer. I'm racing against time. As these thoughts flashed through Gahan's mind, he suddenly realized that the best thing he could do was to agree to fleeting time wouldn't fish his condition. Otherwise, there was a high chance that Ku Rakin would be able to coordinate with the Yu King Gojin sword before he could. Actually, there's no need for 2 hours. I have a quantum teleportation circle that connects to Yin Jing City. You can return to Yin Jing City in 5 seconds. It shouldn't be a problem for you to make it in time for the battle. Fleeting time wooden fish pushed the severed black hair and Phantom Valley's cigarette box back to Gahan. Of course, this quantum teleportation circle can only be used by those who are related to the Fleeting Time family. It's up to you to decide. At that moment, both Fleeting Time Wooden Fish and Rina Takasaka turned to look at Gohan. None of them knew what answer Gohan would give. "Hello. May I know if Comrade LV Hao is in?" Kurakin pressed the doorbell, but he did not have much hope for the answer. Since all 19 people on the list were being manipulated by the same organization, how could the 20th person be an exception? In fact, Jules Vren had wanted to give up halfway, but he had been holding back his urge to walk all the way here. He wanted to give it one last try no matter what. "Hello, I'm LV Hao. Why are you looking for me?" Hearing a rough male voice admitting that he was the person on the list, hot tears almost flowed out of the corner of Jules Vren's eyes. It had been 19 times, and he had finally heard from the person on the list that he was here. "It's like this. I'd like to spar with you." Kurakin used the word "you," which was the biggest concession he could make. He would not even use the word "you" when speaking to his father. "Spar." Kurakin could hear the excitement in the man's voice. The door was pulled open, and a rugged and energetic face appeared in front of Kurakin. "Exchanging pointers is good. I like exchanging pointers the most." Lu Hao touched his head and said with an excited face. LV Hao's house was not far from Yinjing City's Coliseum. It was only about 2 to 3 kilometers away. In less than 10 minutes, the two of them could already see the grand, circular Coliseum. LV Hao and Kurakin registered at the Coliseum's management office and received a permit to use the arena. The two of them were allowed to fight as they pleased in the arena. Once the shields of the opponent's sword maidens or the swordsman's own shields were destroyed, the match would be over. The swordsman's life was not allowed to be harmed. "Comrade LV Hao, please." Kurakin and LV Hao stood in the arena. Kurakin gestured for LV Hao to begin. "All right," LV Hao said proudly. He immediately released his sword maiden and introduced, "Comrade Kurakin. This is my treasured sword, the Pure Yang sword. It is ranked 7th in the treasured sword record. Pure Yang sword." Legend has it that it was a treasured sword used by East Flower immortal Lu Dongbin when he was demoted to immortal. After Lu Dongbin ascended, the sword was stained with some immortal qi. However, it was not qualified to be an immortal sword. Lu Dongbin left it in the mortal world, and it became a treasured sword's sword maiden. The Pure Yang sword was ranked 7th in the treasured sword record. Sword maidens who could be ranked in the top 10 were not simple characters. "Comrade Kurakin, I've already introduced myself. Aren't you going to introduce yourself?" LV Hao suddenly patted his head and said in sudden realization, "Oh, I understand. The little girl on your neck is your sword maiden, right?" "The little girl on my neck?" Kurakin was stunned at first. Then he saw 2 small feet swaying from the corner of his eyes. Kurakin had completely forgotten that Sha was still sitting on his neck. Over the past few dozen days, ever since the little girl he picked up from the emergency response center woke up, she had been with him. She treated Kurakin's neck as her nest. Kurakin was completely used to her existence. So much so that he did not react at all, even though there was a person sitting on his neck. "No, she's not my sword maiden." Kurakin quickly took Sha off his neck and put her on the side of the ring. It would have been best to put Sha on the audience seat. However, the match had already begun. If Kurakin took the initiative to leave the ring, it would mean that he had admitted defeat. So, Kurakin had no choice but to put Sha on the side of the ring. After reminding her that she must not come to the center of the ring, he took out his sword maiden and faced LV Hao. "Comrade Kurakin, why don't you release the sword maiden?" LV Hao immediately patted his head after saying that. "Understand. You must be the sword master, right?" That's right. Kurakin nodded and admitted. That's great. I've always been fighting with sword maidens. I've never sparred with a real sword master. Now I can finally experience it. LV Howe was so excited that he almost jumped up. He put the sword maiden, who had been released, back into the sword and held it in his hand. Then he said loudly, Comrade Kurakin, I'm actually the sword master too. Let's have a passionate battle. Who the hell wants to have a passionate battle with you? Kurakin secretly cursed in his heart. However, he did not look down on LV Howe. From LV Howe's body, he could see that LV Howe's strength was not inferior to his own. In the next moment, the two sword masters started fighting each other. There was nothing much to write about the battle between the two of them. Even if it was written, no one would be interested in watching it. After the two of them exchanged dozens of blows, the spectators could gradually see some clues. In terms of swordsmanship, Kurakin's swordsmanship was higher than LV Howe's. His swordsmanship was more exquisite and proficient. Kurakin was like an old swordsman who had been immersed in swordsmanship for decades, while LV Howe was like a newbie who had only been practicing swordsmanship for a few years. In terms of talent, LV Howe was slightly stronger. However, in terms of experience, he was not as good as Kurakin. In terms of swordsmanship, Kurakin would be able to defeat LV Howe within 100 moves. However, in fact, Kurakin was already at a disadvantage. This was because LV Howe was wielding the Pure Yang sword. Pure Yang sword. The sword contained a strong Pure Yang power, which could double LV Howe's defensive power, and at the same time, reduce the consumption of sword essence by half. If the sword wielder was a boy, the Pure Yang power could double the sword wielder's attack power. In any case, the Pure Yang power's buff was very terrifying. Relying on this buff, LV Howe was able to suppress Kurakin. In less than 50 to 60 moves, Kurakin was already in a difficult situation. His personal shield was constantly being depleted, and it was on the verge of shattering. Damn it, I'll fight it out. Seeing that he was about to be defeated, Kurakin made up his mind and used his ultimate move to perish together with his opponent. He ignored his defense and increased his attack power. If he could hit LV Howe's vital points, he would be able to shatter LV Howe's personal shield in one move. At the very least, it would turn into a draw. For the sake of the Go Jian sword, the king of Yu, in his heart, Zhu Ren had no distractions in his mind. The sword strike he performed could be said to be an extraordinary performance, accurately hitting the vital part of LV Howe's personal shield. Then, just as Kurakin had planned, LV Howe's personal shield shattered into pieces. I won. Kurakin thought excitedly. He was so excited that he wanted to shout, "You lost!" But in the next second, LV Howe's personal shield suddenly reappeared, and it reappeared in a state of 100% energy. This instantly turned Kurakin into a dumbfounded chicken. He did not even have time to react to LV Howe's next attack. He took LV Howe's attack head-on. At that moment, Kurakin's personal shield had less than 8% energy. LV Howe's attack could completely shatter Kurakin's personal shield in one move. Chapter 709. I'm going to lose. Victory and defeat were often decided in an instant. One moment, Kurakin was celebrating his victory, and the next moment, he was shocked by his defeat. Then, in the next moment, he felt a force pulling him from behind, and he flew out in an instant, falling face first onto the ground. Although this posture was a little ugly, it allowed Zhu Ren to avoid a fatal blow and preserve the last bit of energy of his personal shield. Sha. Zhu Luren was surprised to find that the person who pulled him back from the edge of defeat was actually Sha, who he had placed in the corner of the arena just now. This little girl was standing opposite LV Howe at this time. She looked at him angrily and asked with a pout, "Why did you hit my father?" "I didn't hit your dad." LV Howe realized that he was indeed hitting Kurakin, so he rubbed his head in distress and changed his words. "I was just sparring with your dad, understand? It was just a sparring. I didn't really want to hurt your dad." You were hitting my dad. Since you hit my dad, I will hit you," Sha said angrily. Then, one of her ponytails suddenly grew and hardened and took the initiative to stretch into her hand. After a while, her hair actually turned into the shape of a long sword. You really are a sword maiden. Comrade Ku Rockin even lied to me that you weren't a sword maiden. LV Howe saw that there was an additional sword in Sha Sha's hand. Although the appearance of the sword was very strange, it was actually made out of hair. But it was nothing. Some sword maiden swords even extended out of their fingernails. Sha Sha. Seeing this scene, Ku Rockin, who was behind Sha Sha, was a little dumbfounded. He had always thought that Sha Sha was just an ordinary human, and never thought that Sha Sha actually had the ability to shoot swords. This was definitely not an ability that a normal human should have. Could be that Sha Sha was really a sword maiden, but that was not right. There were only 2 sword scars in his body, and Sha Sha did not have any relationship with him. Then, Sha Sha was someone else's sword maiden. That's not right either. Sha Sha had been by his side for more than 30 days. During these 30 days, Sha Sha had never left his side. They had spent more than 95% of their time together, including sleeping time. Which sword wielder would allow his sword mistress to do such a thing? Unless the sword wielder was dead. But if the sword wielder was really dead, then there was no reason for Sha Sha to be alive and kicking. She should have returned to her sword form. There was only one possibility left. Sha Sha was neither a human nor a sword maiden. She was a Yuan Ko. But if Sha Sha was really Yuan Ko, then there were still some things that could not be explained. The base city was the most heavily guarded place against Yuan Ko. First of all, Yuan Ko couldn't pass through the dimensional barrier around the base city, not to mention the Yuan Ko scanning system that was working all the time. For the entire day, Ku Rockin had been running around the city with Sasha. It was impossible for them to escape the surveillance system. If Sha Sha was really Yuan Ko, then Sha Sha would have been captured by the people of Yinjing City long ago. How could she have survived until now? But if Sha Sha wasn't a sword maiden or Yuan Ko, then what kind of existence was she? Regarding this, Ku Rockin felt confused. He couldn't understand it at all. On one side, Ku Rockin was racking his brain thinking. On the other side, LV Howe and Sha Sha were fighting. You must be Comrade Ku Rockin's ancient sword-grade sword maiden. LV Howe rubbed his head. Master taught me not to use a sword maiden that is of a higher grade to fight with other sword wielders. Then I'll use an ancient sword-grade sword maiden to fight with you. LV Howe was indeed a practical person. He immediately put away his treasured sword-grade sword maiden, the pure Yang sword, and took out his ancient sword-grade sword maiden. Compared to the pure Yang sword, LV Howe's ancient sword-grade sword maiden wasn't considered outstanding. It was ranked in the middle of the ancient sword record. Little lady, come on. LV Howe gave Sha Sha a simple and honest smile. He took the initiative to take a defensive stance. Clearly, he wanted Sha Sha to attack first. Sha Sha wasn't as simple and honest as LV Howe. She raised her hair sword and immediately attacked. Not good. Sha Sha doesn't know any sword techniques. She's not LV Howe's match. At this moment, Ku Rockin shifted his attention away from what Sha Sha was. He started to pay attention to the battle between Sha Sha and LV Howe. Therefore, Ku Rockin quickly realized that Sha Sha was a complete idiot when it came to sword techniques. Sha Sha's attack was like that of a primary school student. It was straightforward and didn't have any variations. Anyone who had learned sword techniques for a few months would be able to easily dodge Sha Sha's attack. To a sword master like LV Howe, dodging Sha Sha's attack was as easy as eating and drinking. This little lady, your sword techniques can't be used like this. Don't you know sword techniques? LV Howe, who was Sha Sha's opponent, was also surprised. Although the sword techniques of the sword maidens were not uniform, more than 98% of them were far above the standards of humans. This was also the reason why humans didn't consider learning sword techniques and becoming sword masters. Instead, they let the sword maidens fight on their own. However, there weren't many sword maidens like Sha Sha who knew nothing about sword techniques. They were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. Could it be that this lady is the sword maiden that we just discovered? So she isn't very proficient in sword techniques. LV Howe pondered for a moment and felt that he needed to help this new sword maiden. Therefore, LV Hao, who could have dodged the attack, did not. Instead, he gently used his sword to lift Sha Sha's hair sword. He was prepared to use battle techniques to teach this new sword maiden a lesson. However, when his sword came into contact with Sha Sha's hair sword, he was completely stunned. He did not move at all. He allowed Sha Sha's sword to stab his body, causing his personal shield to shake. After a full 10 seconds, LV Hao finally broke free from this daze. In these 10 seconds, Sha Sha had used her chaotic sword techniques to leave more than 10 marks on LV Hao's personal shield. This is the ability to freeze the body. LV Hao, who had returned to normal, was a little surprised, but only a little. There were many sword maidens with the ability to freeze the body, but the duration of the freeze was less than 5 seconds. There were not many sword maidens that could freeze the body for 10 seconds, and this was an ancient sword maiden. I understand. This must be Sha Sha's ultimate skill. That's why she can freeze the body for 10 seconds. Ultimate skills have their own limits. Now, Sha Sha can't freeze me for another 10 seconds, LV Hao told himself. Then, facing Sha Sha's attacking hair sword, LV Hao gently pushed it back. As a result, LV Hao's face was slapped again. The moment his sword maiden and Sha Sha's hair sword came into contact, LV Hao was once again frozen and could not move. After another 10 seconds, LV Hao regained his ability to move. F*CK. Her ultimate skill doesn't even have a cooldown? LV Hao, who had regained his ability to move, complained in his heart. Sha Sha's ability was too strange. According to LV Hao, in this world, there was no sword mistress who could use the ability to freeze for 10 seconds as an ordinary attack. Could it be that this Sha Sha was also a sword mistress of Spirit Sword Realm? There must be something I didn't think of, LV Hao secretly said to himself. In fact, he suddenly realized that every time his sword came into contact with Sha Sha's sword, it would happen. If his sword didn't come into contact with Sha Sha's sword, would he be able to avoid the state of being frozen? Thinking of this, LV Hao couldn't wait to give it a try. So, when Sha Sha attacked again, LV Hao beautifully turned around and dodged Sha Sha's sword. His body and sword did not come into contact with Sha Sha, and at the same time, he placed his sword on Sha Sha's neck. Then LV Hao was frozen again, and then couldn't move for another 10 seconds. Once again, LV Hao became extremely vigilant. He tried to use his swift sword to attack Sha Sha, but when the tip of his sword pierced into Sha Sha's body, LV Hao was naturally immobilized. After 5 or 6 times of torture, LV Hao finally understood. It was not that he would be frozen when he came into contact with Sha Sha's sword, but as long as he came into contact with any part of Sha Sha, he would be frozen. This was simply a bug ability. If you want to defeat Sha Sha, you must come into contact with Sha Sha's body. And once you come into contact with Sha Sha's body, you will immediately be frozen. In this way, there were only 2 ways to defeat Sha Sha. One was to defeat Sha Sha with a long-range attack without direct contact, and the second was to defeat Sha Sha with a sure-kill attack. However, LV Hao was only a treasure sword wielder. Whether it was his ancient sword wielder or treasure sword wielder, they did not have long-range attack abilities, so the first method could not be achieved. Similarly, LV Hao's attack power could not directly kill Sha Sha, so every time he attacked, he had to endure a 10-second freeze. This had already doomed LV Hao to failure. Although LV Hao was very unwilling, when he was frozen for the 6th time, Sha Sha successfully broke his personal shield. I've lost. Seeing that his personal shield had been broken, Lu Hao willingly admitted defeat. But unexpectedly, after LV Hao admitted defeat, Sha Sha did not seem to have the awareness to stop attacking. Instead, she still wanted to attack LV Hao. LV Hao's personal shield had already been broken. If Sha Sha's attack successfully hit LV Hao, then LV Hao would very likely be seriously injured and might even die on the spot. Killing someone during a spar was a big taboo in every headquarters city. Even if Ku Rakin had a powerful background, he would immediately be caught by the discipline committee. Aside from death, there was no other way out. But thinking about it, this was actually a good thing for Gahan. as long as Sha Sha killed LV Hao. Then Ku Rakin would never be able to synchronize the king of Ugojin's sword. Chapter 710. Sha Sha. Stop. At this critical moment, Ku Rakin finally reacted and shouted with all his might. When Sha Sha's sword was 1 meter away from LV Hao's body, the jet-black sword finally stopped and disappeared from Sha Sha's hand, turning back into hair. Daddy! Sha Sha jumped back onto Ku Rakin's shoulder. Ku Rakin hurriedly walked to LV Hao's side and apologized. I'm sorry, Comrade LV Hao. I was distracted for a moment. Forget it. LV Hao waved his hand nonchalantly, as if he did not know that he had just taken a trip to the gates of hell. Not only were you distracted, even I was distracted. Comrade Ku Rakin, your Lady Sha Sha can't be an ancient sword maiden, right? I think she's at least a famed sword maiden. Even if you beat LV Hao to death, LV Hao would not believe that an ancient sword-rank sword mistress could possess such a heaven-defying control ability. Just based on this ability, even if Sha Sha's basic attributes were the same as an ancient sword maiden, she should still be ranked among the famed sword maidens. No. Sha Sha is an ancient sword-rank sword maiden. What else could Jules Vren say? He could only bite the bullet and admit that Sha Sha was his ancient sword-rank sword maiden. Sha Sha, who had such an ability, was definitely not human. If he did not admit that Sha Sha was a sword maiden, then wouldn't Sha Sha be a Yuan-ko? Yinjing City would not allow a Yuan-ko to stay in the city. This is really strange. What's Sha Sha's name? I'll go home and do some research. Just based on this ability alone, even the number 1 ancient sword maiden, the Xian sword, cannot compare to her. LV Hao said with envy and curiosity. How would Ku Rakin know what Sha Sha's name was? From the day he met Sha Sha, Sha Sha had only called herself Sha Sha, and when he asked for her name, he did not know. She also did not remember anything in the past, as if she had completely lost her memory. Her name is Sword. Ku Rakin answered with a very vague voice, so LV Hao didn't hear it clearly. Just when he was about to ask again, he suddenly heard Ku Rakin quickly say, Comrade LV Hao, can I ask you to help me prove something? Ku Rakin finally said his original purpose. Proof? What proof? LV Hao asked, not knowing why. It's like this. I wish to coordinate with your esteemed city's king of you, Go Jian. I just heard that your city has recently announced a new rule. If someone from another city wants to synchronize with the famous sword mistress of your city, then they must defeat you, Comrade Liu Hao, who is ranked in the top 20 in the city. That's why I'm here to spar with you. Ku Rakin briefly explained the situation. I see. No problem. Liu Hao agreed very readily, but he immediately rubbed his head in annoyance and said, I've also heard about this matter. The Sword Firmament Pavilion even specially sent us a few proof forms, saying that filling in the proof forms would prove that we were defeated. If I hadn't met you, Comrade Ku Rakin, I would have thought that apart from Gahan and Chanyang Mountain, no one in the world would be a match for me. That's why I don't know where I left that stupid form at home. Why don't you come with me first? I'll help you write a form when I find it. LV Hao's face was a little red as he said this. He really thought that apart from Gahan, he was undefeatable in the world. But in the end, he had been defeated by Ku Rakin. This made him, who is naturally forthright and prideful, blush. Thank you, Comrade LV Hao. After experiencing 19 defeats, Ku Rakin, who had finally seen the light of hope, did not mind going home to get a form. He immediately nodded to express his gratitude. All right, we got to know each other after a fight. Let's not call each other comrade in the future. It's so awkward. From now on, we're brothers. I'll call you Brother LV Run, and I'll call you Brother LV Hao. Brother LV Run, what do you think? Not really, Brother LV Hao. Ku Rakin said with a smile. And so, the two people who had just come to the arena from LV Hao's house returned to LV Hao's house. However, Ku Rakin had only stood in front of LV Hao's house for a while. This time, he entered LV Hao's house. But what Ku Rakin did not expect was that LV Hao's house was very messy. All kinds of household garbage were randomly thrown on the ground. There were also 10 rice bowls stacked on the table. These bowls had dried and crusted oil stains on them, and there were maggots constantly moving in the shadows. These bowls had not been washed for at least a month. Besides the mess on the table, the floor of LV Howe's house was also terrible. All kinds of household garbage were randomly thrown on the ground. A lot of clothes were thrown away along with the garbage. These clothes had been soaked with sweat, and a sweaty smell constantly drifted out from the clothes. Jules Verne, who was neat by nature, had a faint feeling of nausea when he smelled this smell. I'm a man. Life is always about small things. You don't have to worry about these things. Go to the sofa and rest for a while. I'll go find a certificate for you. LV Howe smiled and let Ku Rockin sit on his sofa. However, when he walked to the sofa and took a look, he found that Jules Verne's face had turned purple. The sofa was not clean either. There were all kinds of underwear on it. Some of the underwear even had a faint yellow stain on it, giving off a foul smell. Only God knew what the yellow stain was. Judging from the underwear on the sofa, LV Howe still knew that underwear needed to pay special attention to hygiene. He did not mix these underwear with clothes and threw them on the ground. This was also a manifestation of hygiene. How could Ku Rockin still sit on this kind of sofa? He immediately took a dozen steps back, trying to stay away from the sofa. Then he moved a chair from under the dining table. He took out a towel from his pocket and carefully wiped the chair. It became the cleanest object in LV Howe's house. After Ku Rockin sat on the chair in boredom for dozens of minutes, LV Howe walked out of his room with a confused look. He touched his head and said to himself, "Strange, I remember this certificate was clearly left at home. Why can't I find it after looking for a long time? It's broken. Could it be that I went to the toilet that day?" Well, hearing LV Howe talking to himself, Ku Rockin also guessed what happened. It was definitely that LV Howe lacked toilet paper when he went to the toilet. So he used the certificate that he didn't care about as toilet paper to wipe his butt. That was why he couldn't find it after looking for more than 30 minutes. Thinking of this, Ku Rockin couldn't help but sigh. He felt that most of his life's bad luck might have been squeezed out on this day. "Brother LV Howe, your house is really messy. How do you usually survive?" Ku Rockin's Chinibu disease began to act up again. He began to unceremoniously blame LV Howe's house. "Is it messy? I don't think it's messy at all," LV Howe said in amazement. It seemed that he really thought his house was very clean and tidy. He even argued, "I know where my things are, and the location is very convenient. I can find what I need as fast as possible, unlike other people who have to hide things in cabinets. It's not convenient at all. I'm hungry. Let's not talk about the things we use for the time being. Can't you clean the house? Don't you think the smell of the air here is a bit weird?" Ku Rockin said again. "That's true. Sometimes I can't stand this smell," LV Howe said with deep understanding. If even a careless person like him couldn't stand it, everyone could imagine how unbearable the smell was. "Actually, brother LV Howe, why don't you go to the maid service center to find a maid? Let her help you tidy up the house. Isn't that good?" Ku Rockin suggested. "No, absolutely not." LV Howe hurriedly waved his hand. "Brother LV Run, I'm not afraid of you laughing at me. I'm the most lecherous person. If she hangs around in front of me every day, I definitely won't be able to resist doing her. If she does, then so be it. Aren't maids supposed to be used for sex?" Ku Rockin said matter-of-factly. In his own house, he often had sex with his own maids. "I want to, but I can't." At this point, LV Howe's expression was as miserable as it could be. "Brother LV Run, you know that my ship girl is the pure yang goddess. Only by maintaining her virginity can she unleash the full power of the pure yang sword. If I lose my virginity, I'm afraid my strength will drop by more than half. How would I dare?" All right, this was indeed an unavoidable problem. If one wanted to be the number one in Yinjing City, they had to pay a price. And the price LV Howe paid was this messy living environment and the miserable days of not being able to do it, even though he had a bunch of women to do it with. All right, Ku Rockin no longer had the mood to care about LV Howe. He only wanted to know what he should do after losing the crucial proof form. Just as Ku Rakin was about to ask about it, LV Hao pulled on Ku Rakin's hand. Brother LV Run, don't worry. It's just a small matter. If you lose the proof form, you could just get another one. Stay at my place tonight. Tomorrow, I'll go with you to the Swordsman Service Center to get the proof form. What do you think? Even if Ku Rakin had the patience to wait until the next day, Ku Rakin didn't have the guts to stay at LV Hao's place. A place like this couldn't be lived in with just guts. Why don't you try staying in the latrine for a night? No, I'm in a hurry. Brother LV Hao, let's go to the Swordsman Service Center now. I don't want to drag this out any longer. Ku Rakin held LV Hao's hand tightly. Then let's go. LV Hao quickly pulled Ku Rakin towards the door. The Swordsman Service Center's notary office closes at 6:30. It's 6 now. There's less than half an hour left. If we don't leave now, it'll be too late. With that, the two of them sprinted towards the Swordsman Service Center. Chapter 711. You want to collect the form proving that you've been defeated? The notary of the Swordbearer Service Center was troubled when he heard LV Hao's request. If only you had come yesterday. I had more than 100 of these forms with me yesterday. But someone from the printing department came to me this morning and told me that there was an error in the printing of these forms. They need to collect all of them and will only return them to me in a few days. That's why I don't have a single form. How can this be? The news was like a bolt from the blue to Ku Rakin. After 19 defeats, Ku Rakin finally thought that he could see the light of victory. But he never expected that the light would be extinguished in the blink of an eye. It's you, isn't it? You're the one who's causing trouble in the dark, aren't you? You don't want me to get my hands on the Go-Jin sword, right? Ku Rakin, who was on the verge of a mental breakdown, suddenly rushed to the notary's side and grabbed him by the collar. His expression was twisted, and he looked like a demon that had just crawled out of hell. Help! Help! The notary was frightened and shouted loudly. LV Hao immediately rushed forward and tried to pull Ku Rakin away, but Ku Rakin was using so much force that LV Hao was unable to pull him away. Brother LV Ren, wake up, Brother LV Ren. This matter has nothing to do with this notary. You can't hurt him, or something bad will happen. LV Hao was right. Something bad would happen if Ku Rakin did not let go of the notary. The commoners working in the Swordbearer Service Center were different from the commoners in the Fourth Ring. The commoners in the Fourth Ring could be settled with a single word from the Liu family. However, most of the normal people who worked in the Swordbearer Service Center were the Swordbearer's relatives, and they all had their Swordbearer's relatives standing behind them. If Ku Rakin harmed them, the disciplinary committee would definitely punish Ku Rakin severely to ensure that all the Swordbearer's relatives who worked there would be at ease. It was not like there had never been such a case in the past. Unfortunately, Ku Rakin, whose heart had been suppressed for a long time, was almost in a half-crazy state. Moreover, he was not as rational as Gahan, who could stop the car at the critical moment. Instead, he became even more crazy because of LV Hao's persuasion. Brother Liu Run, let go of me. If you don't let go, don't blame me for offending you. When LV Hao said this, he had already made up his mind. If Ku Rakin did not release the notary, he would use the pure Yang sword to attack Ku Rakin from behind. At the very least, he would knock him unconscious. How dare you? Who dares to make a move here? Just as LV Hao was about to make his move, a shout came from the door. This voice was so familiar to LV Hao that when he heard it, his body was like a mouse hearing a cat's meow. His entire body stiffened, and he turned around in a stupefied manner. He said very fearfully, "Master, you can't even handle a small matter properly." The man glared at LV Hao and slightly moved his finger to the left. Then, Jules Vren, who was about to strangle the notary's neck, flew up diagonally as if he had been slapped by something. In the end, he hit the wall of the notary's office heavily and broke a lot of things. Daddy, Sha, who had been following behind Ku Rakin, screamed. She glared angrily at the man who had just walked in before jumping to Ku Rakin's side. She began to worry about Ku Rakin's condition. What's going on? Who is this kid who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth? How dare he make a move in the Swordbearer Service Center? Don't tell me he's a Yuzhong dude from Yuzhong City. The man questioned LV Hao. Master, he's my friend. His name is Ku Rakin. He really is from Yuzhong City. LV Hao answered honestly. Hey, I was just speaking thoughtlessly, but I actually got it right. This kid who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth is actually a Yuzhong old man. Humph, go and inform the Discipline Commission for discipline inspection. Capture this person for me, and let the tiger's roar sword spirit personally come to redeem him. The man spoke the name of the tiger roar sword spirit, as if he was speaking the name of an ordinary person. He didn't have the slightest bit of respect for the tiger roar sword spirit. Master, this person is your disciple's friend. Can you give her disciple some face and let my friend go? LV Hao was very loyal to his brother. He had only known Ku Rakin for less than half a day, but he was willing to go against his master's authority and plead for Ku Rakin. Didn't master tell you? You're not allowed to make friends with Yuzhong dude. Did you ignore master's words? LV Hao's master was even more displeased with LV Hao. Fine. Since he's your friend, then tell me why he attacked our notary. If you can give me a reasonable reason, I won't consider letting him off lightly. Yes, master. LV Hao told his master everything about his encounter with Ku Rakin. From how Ku Rakin challenged him to a duel, then defeated him, and tried to synchronize with the Yu King Gojin sword. He also told him about Ku Rakin's tough life as a challenger, as well as all sorts of bad luck. Even now, he still couldn't prove that he defeated the sword bearer on the list. That's why he went crazy and did this. Master, Brother Lu Run is too pitiful. He really did defeat me. Why don't you give him a chance and let him try synchronizing with the Yu King Gojin sword? He might not be able to do it anyway. LV Hao begged his master in a low voice. LV Hao begged his master in a low voice. It seemed that his master had a lot of say in the sword pavilion. He could actually give Zhu Lovren a chance to coordinate with the king of Yu, Gojin Jian, without completing the necessary procedures. Nonsense. The rules were set by master. Do you want master to change it all the time? LV Hao's master scolded angrily. However, this revealed a very important piece of information. The order to make Ku Rakin run around was set by LV Hao's master. Didn't that mean that LV Hao's master was the new Sword Tower Lord of Yanjing City, Sword Immortal Tian Hung? Yes, master. I know I was wrong. I really can't make master change his orders all the time. But master, please do me a favor and let Brother Luren go. Don't let him go to the commission for discipline inspection. He didn't hurt this notary in any way, did he? LV Hao didn't give up the chance to plead on Ku Rakin's behalf. We'll talk about this later. Don't you think what happened to this Yuzhong dude is very strange? As far as I know, 11 of the 19 people on the list are in Yanjing City. He didn't see any of these 11 people, so in the end, he had to beg you. And I never said anything like that there was something wrong with the form and that I needed the printer to take it back and reprint it. But the printer took all of the forms back. Now that I think about it, all of this happened this morning. There's something wrong with this. There's a very big problem. Sword Immortal Tian Hung thought about it for a moment and realized that something was wrong. But master, this doesn't make sense. All of this seems to be specifically targeting Brother Lu Run. It's as if someone just doesn't want Brother Lu Run to synchronize with the Yu King Gojin sword. But why? Brother Lu Run just arrived in Yanjing City yesterday. He doesn't have any enemies or friends in Yanjing City. Who would spend so much effort to stop him? Lu Hao's words were very thought-provoking. That's what I'm curious about as well. To be able to get all 19 people to reject you at the same time, take away all of the forms from the notary office, and steal your forms while they're at it. The person behind this is no ordinary person. Only a few powers would be able to do something like this. The more Sword Immortal Tian Hung thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. Because he was in charge of the Sword Pavilion, Sword Immortal Tian Hung began to speculate. He felt that the person behind Ku Rakin might not be targeting Ku Rakin. Instead, they were targeting him, and Ku Rakin was merely a weapon. Once a person began to feel that someone was trying to harm them, then no matter how they thought about it, they would only become more and more convinced of their suspicions. Sword Immortal Tian Hung was in such a situation. He felt that there was someone behind Ku Rakin who was plotting against him. Disciple, He really did defeat you, didn't he? Sword Immortal Tion Hung suddenly asked. Yes, Brother Lu Ren's ancient sword rank sword mistress was especially powerful. It defeated your disciple, and your disciple wholeheartedly accepts his defeat. Lu Hao replied sincerely. That's good, since he has already defeated you. Then he's in accordance with the rules of the Sword Pavilion. It doesn't matter if he doesn't need a proof form or not. Bring him to the Sword Pavilion with me. Today, I'll have him coordinate with the king of you, Go Jian. Sword Immortal Tion Hung laughed coldly and said loudly, Yes, master. Lu Hao didn't expect such a dramatic turn of events. His master, who had just adamantly said that he wouldn't change his mind, suddenly agreed to Ku Rakin's request. Hence, LV Hao ran to Ku Rakin's side and shook Ku Rakin, who was dizzy and in pain all over his back, who felt as if his bones had been broken. LV Hao then told him excitedly, Bro Lu Run, good news, my master has agreed to let you off the hook. You can come with us now. Not bad. The Sword Pavilion shouldn't be closed yet. When he stepped into Yanjing City again, he looked at the time on his personal terminal. It was already 6:30 p.m., and there was still half an hour before the Sword Pavilion closed. Gahan had to rush to the Sword Pavilion immediately and put the Yu King Gojian sword into his pocket. The place where Gahan entered the city was in the northwest corner of Yanjing City, located on the 4th Ring Road of Yanjing City. If he took the public transport system from here to the core area of Yanjing City, even if there was no traffic jam, it would still take more than an hour. It was impossible to reach Yanjing City within half an hour. Therefore, Gahan had to think of a faster way to get there. P.S. The Sword Tower closes at 7 o'clock, half an hour later than the notary office. The Sword Bearer Service Center doesn't close, but the notary office of the Sword Bearer Service Center does. Chapter 712. BYD Maglev Flying Car Dealership. It was one of the most famous Maglev flying car dealerships in Yuzhong City. They had more than 60 branches in Yuzhong City, covering almost all areas from the core area to the 4th Ring Road. They were a veritable leader in the industry. However, even if they were the leader of the industry, their stores were usually deserted. Maglev flying cars were expensive things that ordinary people could not afford. Even if they could, it would be meaningless. Due to the narrow roads, except for the public transportation system, no private Maglev flying cars were allowed on the roads in Yanjing City. Once discovered, the driver's license would be revoked immediately, the car would be seized, and a huge fine would be imposed. Therefore, only sword bearers had a real need to shop. Only people like them, who were active outside the city every day, needed Maglev flying cars to increase their speed and escape at critical moments. The Maglev flying car dealership in the 4th Ring Road was located in a relatively remote area. It had only opened there because there was an entrance to Yanjing City's train station. Perhaps some sword bearers from other cities would come here and have the urge to buy a Maglev flying car. Generally speaking, this Maglev flying car dealership would only make 1 or 2 deals a week. However, it had been a tragedy recently. Yuzhong City had been under attack, and the Yuzhong people had not been to Yanjing City for more than 40 days. The business of this BYD Maglev flying car dealership had naturally plummeted. It had been a whole month without a single deal. It was said that the store manager had begun to consider layoffs. He planned to lay off half of the 4 employees in the store, leaving only 2 employees to sweep the floor and clean the cars. The 4 employees were anxious. If they could make a deal at this time, the store manager would have no reason to fire them. Therefore, when Gahan, who looked a little anxious and dressed in ordinary clothes, arrived at the Maglev flying car dealership, the 4 employees greeted him enthusiastically and rushed to introduce their Maglev flying cars to Gahan. Sir, please take a look at this BMW 2950. This is a classic BMW Maglev flying car model developed in 2950. It has been selling well for 50 years, with sales of up to 8,000 units and a cumulative mileage of more than 40 billion kilometers. This is definitely your best choice. One of the employees introduced, spitting out saliva. He was telling the truth, but think about it. What a 50-year-old Maglev flying car. An antique? As the salesperson introduced the hovercraft to Gahan, he frantically wiped the dust off the hovercraft with a rag. It was obvious that the hovercraft hadn't been cleaned for a while. Maintaining the cleanliness of the vehicles on display was a daily task for the salesperson. Yet this hovercraft was covered in a thick layer of dust. One could imagine that in the salesperson's eyes, this hovercraft was no different from garbage. Sir, don't judge this car by its age, but it is indeed a classic model. The most important thing is that it's cheap. Other hovercrafts cost at least $1 million, but if you buy this one, it won't cost more than $200,000. $200,000 for a hovercraft. You won't lose out, and you won't be fooled. What are you hesitating for? The salesperson's saliva flew everywhere as he introduced the hover car, as if Gahan would miss out on the best deal in the world if he didn't buy it. What's the maximum speed of this hovercraft? What's the instantaneous reaction time difference? Gahan suddenly asked. There wasn't much to explain about the maximum speed, but the reaction time difference didn't need to be explained. The so-called reaction time difference referred to the time needed for Gahan to give the hovercraft a command, and then the hovercraft to complete the command. Take a car before the apocalypse as an example. When the driver turned the steering wheel to make a turn, the car naturally couldn't immediately complete the turn according to the driver's intention. From turning the steering wheel to moving smoothly into the other lane, the entire process would take a few seconds to 10 seconds. This was the reaction time difference. The same principle applied to maglev hovercraft. The maximum speed is 600 kilometers per hour. Under stable driving conditions, the reaction time difference for a 180-degree turn is 4 seconds. In drift mode, it takes 1-2 seconds, the salesperson quickly reported. In other words, this hovercraft would need 4 seconds to complete a 180-degree turn, and that was the time needed for stable driving conditions. If it was in drift mode, it would only take 1-2 seconds. Compared to the cars of pre-Great Calamity times, the difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. However, this data was worlds apart from the data that Gahan wanted in his heart. Wait, it's too slow. This won't do. Gahan waved his hand and left the hovercraft. Sir, take a look at this one. Next, another salesperson brought Gahan to look at another hovercraft. Gahan only glanced at it briefly. He could tell from the feeling that the two hovercrafts weren't much different in quality. They were both cheap, ordinary goods. They couldn't possibly meet the standards that Gahan needed. I don't have time to waste on you. Tell me immediately, do you have a hovercraft with a maximum speed of more than 1,000 kilometers per hour and a 360-degree reaction time difference of less than 0.7 seconds in drift mode? Gahan quickly reported a set of data to the salesperson. The four shop assistants looked at each other with disdain on their faces. One of the salespeople advised, Sir, the data you're talking about is something that can only be achieved by a super maglev sports car. Cars cost tens of millions of yuan. I think you should shut up. Just tell me if you have one or not. You don't have to tell me how much it costs. Gahan glared at the salesperson. The salesperson seemed to have been bitten by an invisible force. His whole body trembled in fear, and his lower body felt a little wet. Yes. The salesperson jumped up and ran back into his office. He quickly ran out again and handed a booklet to Gahan. The booklet had a very eye-catching picture of a super maglev sports car printed on it. Gahan recognized it at a glance. It was the Yanhuang 3008 super maglev sports car that Liu Yinling had used to transport him when he left Chanyang Mountain. If it was this super maglev sports car, it would be perfect for Gahan's purposes. Yes, I'll buy this one. Where is it? Gahan asked immediately. Oh, sir, what a coincidence. Don't you know that because our 4S shop is located in a remote area, we don't usually have expensive things like the Yanhuang 3008 Super Maglev sports car. But it just so happens that a few days ago, a sports car that was transported to Yuzhong City is temporarily stored here. We originally planned to load it into an armored maglev train and send it to Yuzhong City tomorrow. If you want it, we'll give it to you first. When a salesperson heard that Gahan wanted to buy the Yanhuang 3008, he immediately perked up and eagerly introduced it to Gahan. Bring me there immediately. Under Gahan's command, the salesperson brought Gahan to the 4 as shop's warehouse. In the innermost parking space, Guhan saw the Yanhuang 3008 Super Maglev sports car. This sports car was indeed going to be sent to Yuzhong City. Therefore, the entire sports car was wrapped up. One could only see its shape through the packaging. Gahan immediately walked forward and tore off the door of the Super Maglev sports car. Just by looking at the door, Gahan was very sure that this was indeed the Yanhuang 3008. How much does this car cost? Gahan quickly asked the salesperson. That depends on how you want to buy it. If you don't have much money, we can provide 36 years of installment payment. The down payment is 30 million renminbi, and then 1 million renminbi every year. In total, you only need 66 million renminbi to bring this Yanhuang 3008 home. It's a very, very good deal. If you intend to pay in full, then it will only be 60 million renminbi. But this does not include the license fee, purchase tax, vehicle and vessel tax, road maintenance tax, and so on. Altogether, it's less than 10 million renminbi. If you're sure you want to buy it, I'll help you with the procedures. Don't worry, you'll be able to drive this Yanhuang 3008 home in less than 3 days. The salesperson was elated. He could be considered an old hand, and he could see that Gahan really wanted to buy this car. At the same time, he also knew that car buyers hated waiting for too long. However, the Yanhuang 3008 was too expensive, and there were many procedures required. 3 days was the limit of what he could do. 3 days. Gahan silently repeated the time. Get in the car and experience it first. Feel the space in the driver's seat? Gahan asked hurriedly. Of course. You can feel it as you like. Gahan's request was very normal. Anyone who bought a car would want to experience it in the driver's seat, so the salesperson did not take it seriously. Instead, he warmly invited Gahan to enter the driver's seat. As soon as Gahan sat in the driver's seat, he found that the key to this maglev car was inserted into the steering wheel. Generally speaking, the key would not be inserted directly into the steering wheel. However, this super sports car was prepared to be sent to Yuzhong City, so the person who packed it directly left the key inside. This was to avoid being unable to find the key once they reached Yuzhong City, so this gave Gahan an opportunity to take advantage of. Little brother, come here for a moment. Gahan waved at the salesperson, and the salesperson took the initiative to come to Gahan's side. He asked eagerly, Sir, what do you need? I don't need anything. I just hope that you can bring me the public terminal in your store. I want to see how much money I've left in my personal terminal, Gahan said. All right. Although he did not understand what Gahan wanted the public terminal for, the salesperson quickly brought the public terminal in front of Gahan. Ding dong. The cash has been transferred. The amount is 70 million renminbi. Please check. The public terminal was moved in front of Gahan, and Gahan quickly touched his personal terminal to the public terminal. Immediately, the salesperson found that a huge sum of money had been transferred into the account. Sir, this money is not right. You don't have to pay in a hurry. Besides, this is a few 100,000 more. Just as the shop assistant was about to warn Gahan, he suddenly heard a loud engine roar. The packaging near the chassis of the maglev car was burned through by 8 high-pressure magnetic energy beams. Then, the Yanhuang 3008 Super Maglev sports car rose to a height of 3 meters in front of the shop assistant. Then, like an arrow released from a bow, it shot out of the shop assistant's sight, forever disappearing from the shop assistant's sight. Chapter 713, October 21st, 3008 AD. This was an unforgettable day for everyone in the transportation department of the Yanjing City Council. Because on this afternoon, on the road from the 4th Ring Road to the core area, the most appalling car racing incident in Yanjing City in the past 100 years took place. The first report to the transportation department was at 1835, reporting that a big white Super Maglev sports car flashed in front of him at a super speed of more than 1,000 kilometers per hour near the 4th Ring Road train station. At first, the transportation department only thought it was a deliberate prank. Racing at 1,000 kilometers per hour in Yanjing City? Wasn't that courting death? Crashing into a building would result in the car being destroyed and people dying. Even a professional racer would not dare to do such a crazy thing. However, only a minute later, the next eyewitness report was sent to the transportation department. A young couple reported to the transportation department in horror. When they were walking on the side of the road, they suddenly felt a strong wind pressure and then saw a white shadow flash past them. Then, the young couple's clothes were completely torn from the chest down, as if they had been cut by a sharp knife. Even their bodies were left with a bloody mark. This is wind pressure. An old man from the transportation department jumped up in surprise. If a super maglev sports car can produce wind pressure that is enough to cut clothes when it's traveling at more than 1,000 kilometers per hour, is there really someone racing at 1,000 kilometers per hour on the 4th Ring Road? At this time, the transportation department of Yanjing City did not quite believe these things, but within a minute, 5 buses sent them reports at the same time. The contents of the reports were almost exactly the same. They all said that they saw a white shadow flash on the road, and then the entire maglev bus was pushed a meter or two away by the strong wind pressure. There were also 2 or 3 passengers who fell on the bus because they lost their balance and were bleeding from their heads. Therefore, the transportation department of Yanjing City finally began to pay attention to this report. They mobilized all the surveillance cameras in the 4th Ring Road in an attempt to find the white ghost. However, along the way, according to the route reported by the bus driver, the surveillance cameras never found the white shadow. Could it be a scam? You bunch of idiots, stop searching 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers. If he really is traveling at a speed of 1,000 kilometers per hour, you'll have to search for the surveillance cameras at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour. A big shot from the Ministry of Transportation spoke, and the staff suddenly realized what was going on. They began to move the surveillance cameras in front of them even faster. Finally, they found the white shadow near the intersection of the 3rd Ring Road. A high-definition camera had captured the shadow. Take a screenshot and analyze the origin of this super maglev sports car. Also, deploy 100 high-definition cameras to monitor this crazy guy. The big boss of the Ministry of Transportation ordered sternly. Immediately, the surveillance footage of the entire Ministry of Transportation began to be mobilized. The surveillance cameras that were originally used to monitor various locations in the city were all adjusted to the scene of the white Superior driving on the road. Under such intense surveillance, the white shadow finally revealed itself. Sure enough, a big white super maglev sports car was racing on the streets of the 4th Ring Road at more than 1,000 kilometers per hour. Although the roads in the city were a little narrow, there were no private cars, only a few public buses. Therefore, the road conditions were still very good. This super cool sports car only needed to avoid the public buses and the people on the roadside to maintain its high speed. Surprisingly, when it overtook these maglev buses, the super cool sports car showed no signs of slowing down. Instead, it turned its body vertically and sped along the edge of the buses. No wonder its wind pressure was able to blow the buses 1 or 2 meters away. Damn it! Deploy all the traffic police in the area immediately. We must force this guy to stop. Seeing this scene, the big boss of the Ministry of Transportation was furious. This was a complete provocation to the Ministry of Transportation. If they did not force this damn guy to stop, they would lose face. Boss, we can't catch up, a staff member reported to the big boss. The traffic police nearby are quite a distance away from him. By the time the traffic police arrive, he will have already left. Our people won't be able to catch up with him. Then set up a roadblock in front of me and block his way. The brain immediately responded. But boss, how do we know where he is going? The staff member asked again. Look at his driving route. He must be heading to the junction between the 4th and 3rd rings. Set up a roadblock there. You must stop him. Never let him enter the 3rd ring. Yes. All the staff members roared in unison. They were also angered by the crazy white ghost. Boss, the white ghost is approaching the entrance of the 2nd ring. 15 minutes later, all the staff members of the Ministry of Transportation widened their eyes and stared at the surveillance cameras. Their neat work clothes were all thrown to the ground, revealing the white shirts underneath. The collars of these shirts were all open, and the entire shirt was soaked. As a government department, The council had a strict dress code for its civil servants. Behaviors such as throwing away work clothes, revealing shirts, and unbuttoning shirts would be severely punished. If not, they might even be fired. But now no one cared about this. Everyone, including the big boss, was in the same situation because they had all been driven crazy by the white ghost. Sweat poured out of their bodies like a fountain. If they did not take off their work clothes, these civil servants would probably suffocate to death. Very good. Is the super large construction excavator here? Is it blocking the intersection? The big boss asked through gritted teeth. The blockade at the third ring had completely failed. A total of 8 police hovercrafts were blocking the way, but the white shadow completely ignored them. It used its extreme speed to smash through all 8 hovercrafts and forcibly rushed out of the encirclement and into the third ring road. Fortunately, there were always more buses in the third ring than in the fourth ring. The white ghost was driving on the main road, which had about 20 buses passing by every minute. The density of the buses forced the white ghost to reduce its speed from the initial 1,000 kilometers per hour to 700 kilometers per hour. This gave the Ministry of Transport enough time to mobilize a super large construction vehicle from a construction site at the entrance of the second ring road. This construction vehicle weighed more than 3,000 tons. If the white ghost dared to rampage like before, then the Ministry of Transport would see a living human meat pie. Levitating vehicles on the road. Listen up. You have seriously violated Yinjing City's traffic laws. Please pull over immediately and accept our inspection. Please pull over immediately and accept our inspection. The road ahead is blocked. You can't pass. Please stop immediately and accept our inspection. In the sky above the white cloud, a police helicopter was circling, constantly shouting at the white ghost, hoping it would stop. Unfortunately, it was destined to be useless. Finally, the white ghost arrived at the entrance of the second ring road. The heavy construction excavator had blocked the intersection, so it was impossible for the white ghost to ram through like it did at the third ring road. Hey, do you guys think the white ghost can still ram through? A staff member who was observing the surveillance asked. That's impossible. He can drive through the gap between the undercarriage and the ground in the tracks of this heavy construction excavator. It's just that the height is only 3 meters, and the lowest height of the Yanhuang 3008 is 1 meters. There's no way he can get through it, another worker said. Hearing this, everyone let out a sigh of relief. Finally, they could subdue the white ghost. But very quickly, the person who spoke was slapped hard in the face. This was because the white ghost did not slow down in the face of the heavy construction excavator. Instead, as the staff member had guessed at the beginning, it forcibly rushed through the gap between the chassis and the ground. That's impossible. It can only be compressed to at least 1 meters. It's impossible for it to rush through. The staff member who spoke just now said to himself in disbelief. When the white ghost appeared in the surveillance of the second ring road, the team members were surprised to find that the upper half of the white ghost was missing a large piece, revealing the interior decorations of the driver's compartment and the bright red color under the white skin. Yes, it's only 1 meters higher. The driver only needs to abandon the 1 meters of the roof, and he can pass through the excavator's territory. I didn't think of such a simple thing. I'm really too stupid. The staff member finally found the answer to the question, but it was all too late. The white ghost had already rushed into the second ring road. I recognize it. This is the Yanhuang 3008. This interior decoration is definitely the Yanhuang 3008. A staff member screamed loudly. Previously, they had carefully studied the screenshots of the white ghost, but no matter what, they could not identify the model of the white ghost. It was only after the interior decoration was exposed that they recognized it as the Yanhuang 3008. But why is it white? I can guarantee that among the 3 colors of the Yanhuang 3008, there is definitely no white. Who knows? Can't people buy it and paint it white in the future? All right, stop arguing about such meaningless things. In another 5 minutes, it will rush into the entrance of the core area. If we let this car rush into the core area, we will lose completely. The big boss of the transportation department roared angrily. In the end, this matter could not be covered up. The other big bosses of the council had already been calling him continuously to ask what had happened. If the white ghost was allowed to enter the core area, then his future in the transportation department would be completely ruined. How we block it? There are no heavy vehicles in the vicinity that can block the road. If we still use the police hover car to block it, then we will just be playing bowling. Then close the door. The big boss of the transportation department glared with a pair of blood-white eyes. Close the door to the core area immediately. I don't believe that he has the ability to rush in through the door made of dimensional alloy. But boss, closing the door requires the approval of the sword committee. This is against the procedures. Who cares about the procedures? At most, I will resign and close the door immediately. The big boss shouted crazily. Report. The door to the core area has been closed. Other than the pedestrian crossing, not a single car can enter the core area. At this time, all the staff of the transportation department stopped their tasks at hand. They stared at the white ghost, wanting to see what it would do after realizing that the door was closed. Would it turn around and find another way, or would it stop and dismount and accept the punishment of the law? Finally, the white ghost appeared under the surveillance camera of the core area's door. However, it did not show any signs of slowing down. It was as if it could not see that the door was closed and continued to rush toward the door. Does this person not want to live anymore? So he wants to go crazy one last time and commit suicide? Many of the staff made such a guess, but some of them felt that the white ghost would not commit suicide just like that. It must have a way to pass through the door of the core area. 1 kilometer, 500 meters, 100 meters, 50 meters, 20 meters. The white ghost kept approaching the door of the core area. In fact, even if it tried to slow down, it would be useless. It was destined to hit the door and become a pile of minced meat. Go to hell. The big boss clenched his fists tightly, praying that the guy who ruined his future would die here. Unfortunately, things did not go as he wished. When the white ghost was 10 meters away from the door, everyone felt their vision blur. The white ghost seemed to disappear for a moment. When it appeared again, it had already passed through the door of the core area and appeared on the streets of the core area. Pa! The big boss slumped on the chair weakly. His limbs were weak, and his eyes were unfocused. He muttered to himself, "This is not a human. It's a ghost, a ghost. It's Yuanko." Chapter 714. Pavilion Master. Sword Immortal Tian Hen led Ku Rakin and LV Hao into the sword pavilion. Upon seeing Sword Immortal Tian Hen, all of the attendants bowed their heads in greeting. Sword Immortal Tian Hen only nodded indifferently. He didn't give them any extra expression. Instead, he walked over to Yu King Go Jian's side. Take him. Sword Immortal Tian Hen was just about to instruct the attendants when his personal gadget suddenly rang. He accepted the call on his personal gadget and said a few words to the person on the other end. His expression instantly darkened. Be asterisk starred. What the hell is this white ghost? There are only a few hundred people in your Department of Transportation, and you're allowing a stupid car to wreak havoc in Yanjing City? You still have the face to report this to me? Sword Immortal Tian Hen paused. Then, after hearing what the person on the other end said, his expression became a little strange. You're saying that white ghost stopped in front of the Sword Bearer Service Center. What? He ignored the Service Center security and parked his car in front of my sword pavilion. What the F asterisk CK? F asterisk CK. Sword Immortal Tian Hen let loose a string of expletives in a very down-to-earth manner. You guys go to the first floor right now and capture that guy who dares to break into the sword pavilion. I want to see just what kind of B asterisk starred has the guts to do this. Sword Immortal Tian Hen instructed the 2 sword-wielding guards beside him. These 2 sword-wielding guards were both famed sword rank sword-wielding guards. They were the most elite sword-wielding guard aside from the 5 spirit sword rank sword-wielding guards. The 2 of them received their orders and immediately went down from the 3rd floor to capture that audacious bastard. Open the glass case and hand Yu King Go Jian's sword to this Yuzhong dude. Even in front of Ku Rakin, Sword Immortal Tian Hen didn't hesitate to use the insulting term Yuzhong dude to refer to Ku Rakin. Ku Rakin's expression was ashen. However, the difference in power between him and the Yu King Go Jian sword prevented him from saying anything unnecessary. He could only suppress the humiliation in his heart and slowly reach out to grab the Yu King Go Jian's sword. Wait, just like in novels, at this critical moment, a voice exploded in Ku Rakin's ears. Ku Rakin instinctively shrunk back, but he quickly reacted. Not only did he not retreat, he even grabbed the Yu Wang Gojian's sword even faster. When Zhu Vren's hand was less than 1 centimeter away from the hilt of the king of Yu's Gojian's sword, a transparent and vigorous sword chi slashed on the display case containing the king of Yu's Gojian sword. The entire display case instantly shattered into pieces. Suffering the impact of the force, the Yu King Gojian's sword also flew into the air, flying towards the direction where the sword chi had come from. Get back here. Sword Immortal Tian Hen's face was livid. He waved his sword, and the sword of Yu King Gojian, which was about to fly away, changed direction in midair and landed in Sword Immortal Tian Hen's hand. Who is so daring? How dare you behave atrociously in my sword pavilion? Do you believe that I won't transfer you to the Shanghai Pass today? Sword Immortal Tian Hen roared. A gust of wind blew past, and a white figure landed in front of Sword Immortal Tian Hen. This junior has offended Sword Immortal Tian Hen. This junior deserves to die 10,000 times over. Please forgive me, my lord. This person immediately apologized to Sword Immortal Tian Hen as soon as he landed. At the very least, Sword Immortal Tian Hen's expression improved a little. At this moment, the 2 famed sword-bearers that Sword Immortal Tian Hung had sent out hurriedly ran back. They apologized to Sword Immortal Tian Hung first. We were incompetent. We failed to capture this criminal who dared to trespass into the sword pavilion. We have caused the pavilion master to suffer. You're just a famed sword rank sword wielder. Do you really think you can scare me? Sword Immortal Tian Hen turned around and scolded the 2 famed sword rank sword wielder. What else could they say? They could only laugh bitterly in their hearts, mocking themselves for being so unlucky. Who are you? How dare you trespass into Yin Jing City's sword pavilion? Sword Immortal Tian Hen turned to the man who was apologizing to him. He looked at the man's face and felt that he looked a little familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen him before. How could it be you? Ku Rakin was shocked when he saw the man's appearance. The man who had appeared before him was Gahan. Why had he suddenly appeared here? He had even destroyed the counter of the king of Yu's Gojian sword, and had even tried to snatch the king of Yu's Gojian sword from his hands. This junior is Yuzhong City's Sword Immortal Gahan. Greetings, Sword Immortal Tian Hen. Gahan stood up and said to Sword Immortal Tian Hen, You're Gahan. Upon hearing the name Gahan, Sword Immortal Tian Hen finally connected this person to a name in his memory. That's right, this person was the previous Yuzhong City Sword Pavilion Master, Gahan, who had brought shame to all the Sword Pavilion Masters of the 8 base cities. Sword Immortal Tian Hen was extremely enraged by this. Ever since he had become a sword wielder, Sword Immortal Tian Hen had set becoming the Sword Pavilion Lord as his life's greatest goal, and he viewed the Sword Pavilion Lord as the most sacred occupation in the world. Therefore, when he finally took over the position of Sword Pavilion Master from his master, he was so happy that people around him said that Sword Immortal Tian Hen hadn't scolded anyone for 3 or 4 days. However, this rumor was soon shattered by a guy named Gahan. This guy was actually the Yuzhong Sword Pavilion's Pavilion Master, who was also a Sword Pavilion Master. However, Sword Immortal Tian Hen was extremely dissatisfied with the fact that this guy called Guhan had taken over the position of Sword Pavilion Lord from his master when he was only a treasured sword rank cultivator, becoming the Sword Pavilion Lord of Yuzhong City. This made Sword Immortal Tian Hen feel as if he had become a joke. He had spent his entire life scheming, expended his entire life's blood and sweat, dodged countless arrows, laid countless traps for others, and escaped from the brink of death countless times. After over 40 years of bloodshed, Sword Immortal Tian Hen had finally become the Pavilion Lord of the Sword Pavilion. But what did this Gahan have to sacrifice? Apparently, he had only been a sword wielder for less than 4 months. He had only spent 1/120 of his own blood and sweat, yet he was able to sit in the same position as Sword Immortal Tian Hen. Thus, Sword Immortal Tian Hen was extremely dissatisfied with Guhan as soon as he heard the news. What happened next was even more infuriating to Sword Immortal Tian Hen. This Gohan had actually passed the position of Sword Pavilion Master to a little girl who just turned 18 years old. And this girl was not even a sword bearer. She was just an ordinary person. Sword Immortal Tian Hen was enraged to the extreme. He felt like his 40 years of hard work was nothing compared to luck. A little girl had become the Sword Pavilion Lord of Yuzhong City without doing anything at all. She hadn't contributed anything at all, yet she was now in charge of all the sword maidens in the entire city just because a certain person had done something to vent his anger. How could Sword Immortal Tian Hung not be enraged? If it weren't for the fact that he was a sword immortal and that Gahan was only a famed sword bearer, Sword Immortal Tian Hen would have challenged Gahan to a duel. I was wondering who it was. How dare he trespass into Yin Jing City's Sword Pavilion? So it's the previous Yuzhong City Sword Pavilion Master who has never taken the Sword Pavilion seriously. Our great famed sword bearer, Master Gahan, Sword Immortal Tian Hen said in a sarcastic tone. You're such a daring former Sword Pavilion Master. You destroyed our display case as soon as you came to Yin Jing City. Are you here to challenge us? I wouldn't dare. I just accidentally smashed your Sword Pavilion's display case. I admit my mistake and am willing to accept any punishment from Yin Jing City's Sword Pavilion. Gohan said in an indifferent voice. Good. You're the one who said it. Accept my punishment. Sword Immortal Tian Hen chuckled coldly. Get the F*CK out of here and don't ever appear before me again. Remember, F*CK out. Sword Immortal Tian Hen paused on the word F*CK. Clearly, he wanted Gahan to roll away from this place. If Gahan did that, he would become a complete joke. Sword Immortal Tian Hen, you've misunderstood. I'm talking about the rules of Yin Jing City's Sword Pavilion, not your punishment. Gohan chuckled. Sword Immortal Tian Hen, may I ask, according to the rules of Yin Jing City's Sword Pavilion, what is the punishment for destroying the Sword Pavilion's public property? Yes. Sword Immortal Tian Hen was suddenly stumped. Although he was the Sword Pavilion Master, he had never had a detailed understanding of the Sword Pavilion's punishments. How would he know what punishment he would have to bear for destroying the Sword Pavilion's public property? Pavilion Master, according to the rules, if you destroy the Sword Pavilion's public property but don't cause any damage to the Sword Maiden, you'll have to pay 10 times the original price, a famed sword-rank swordsman whispered to Sword Immortal Tian Hen. Sword Immortal Tian Hen was speechless. How much could a small counter be worth? Even if it was 10 times the original price, it still wouldn't amount to much to a swordsman. No wonder he dared to say that he would be punished according to the Sword Pavilion's rules. It turned out that he had been lying in ambush here. This person was extremely detestable. Gohan will properly apologize to Sword Immortal Tian Hen for this matter later. Seeing Tian Hen's expression, Gohan knew that Sword Immortal Tian Hen already understood that he wouldn't make things difficult for him over such a small matter. Thus, he tactfully dropped the topic. Instead, he expressed that he would personally apologize to Sword Immortal Tian Hen, and this would be the end of the topic. However, from Sword Immortal Tian Hen's attitude toward him, Gohan could sense the fury in Sword Immortal Tian Hen's tone. He also knew where this fury was coming from. However, Gohan had never regretted the decisions he had made. Thus, he had to bear the consequences of his decisions. Senior Sword Immortal Tian Hen, I'm not here for anything else. I just want to make a deal with you. Gohan said calmly. A deal? What kind of deal do you want to make with me? Could it be that you want to sell the position of Yuzhong City's Sword Pavilion Lord to me? Sword Immortal Tian Hen looked at Gohan mockingly. Then, he feigned a look of sudden realization. "Oh, I remember now. You wanted to take this Yu King Gojian sword, didn't you?" Sword Immortal Tian Hen placed the Yu King Gojian sword in front of Gohan. He even intentionally shook it a little. He smiled and asked, "Yuzhong City's previous sword pavilion lord, is this what you want to make a deal with me?" "That's right." Gohan nodded. "I wish to exchange something for the Yu King Gojian sword. From now on, the Yu King Gojian sword belongs to our Yuzhong City's sword pavilion." Chapter 715. In the end, Gohan still rejected fleeting wooden fish. From a rational point of view, agreeing to fleeting wooden fish was the best decision for Gohan. Not only could he obtain the severed black hair and cut off his and Juzi's scars, but he could also quickly rush to Beijing to coordinate with the king of Yu, Gojin. The only price for this was marrying Rina Takasaka. This was not a loss at all. On the contrary, he could even make a lot of money. Not only would he get the Phantom Valley cigarette box worth 10 billion, but he could also form a marriage alliance with the Fleeting family. When Gohan heard Rina Takasaka address Fleeting Wooden Fish as her grandfather, and although Fleeting Wooden Fish's attitude towards Rina Takasaka was a little cold, his words implied that he was related to Rina Takasaka. Putting everything else aside, just this alone was enough to make countless people agree to this, even if they had to sharpen their heads. This was something that they could not even dream of getting. And so, this was directly presented to Gohan. If it was the Gohan from 4 months ago, the Gohan who stabbed Kinzu for the king of Yu, then Gohan would definitely agree to this deal. This was something that had hundreds of benefits and no harm. But for the current Gohan, this was a difficult decision. If he agreed to this deal, not to mention anything else, just a few people would definitely be heartbroken. More importantly, he was Gohan, a man who was determined to become Jindy. If he used his own future to reach a compromise, then what future did Gohan have? Therefore, Gohan rejected the Fleeting Time Wooden Fish. He didn't say anything else to the Fleeting Time Wooden Fish, nor did he look at the green silk sword again. He left the room and left Flowing Time Mountain without looking back. On the way back from Fleeting Time Mountain to Beijing, Gohan kept thinking about what to do next. It was also at this time that Fleeting Wooden Fish suddenly sent Gohan a message. The message was very simple. From beginning to end, it only told him one thing. That was, Kurakin had already defeated LV Hao and obtained the qualifications to synchronize with the king of Yu Gojin. However, because of the Lianyan clan's interference, he would be delayed for another hour or so. If Gohan couldn't reach the Sword Pavilion in Yanjing City within an hour, the king of Yu, Gojin, would coordinate with Kurakin. Although he did not know why Fleeting Wooden Fish would send him such a message, even though his negotiations with the Lianyan family had fallen apart, Fleeting Wooden Fish did not know why. However, one thing was clear. The Lianyan family would not give him false information. He only had an hour to change everything. Tom did not allow Gohan to drag it out any longer. Kurakin was almost certain that he would be able to coordinate King Yu's Gojian sword. Once he succeeded, he would only have 2 options. Either give up on King Yu forever or kill Kurakin. Either option was unacceptable to Gohan. That was why Gohan had to think of a way to stop Kurakin from touching King Yu's Gojian sword. After thinking for a long time, Gohan finally thought of a way to deal with the current situation. Since he couldn't get the green silk severing sword for the time being, he had to think of a way to control King Yu's Gojian sword. If Gohan couldn't coordinate with him, he couldn't let others do it either. Yuzhong City Sword Pavilion was under Gohan's control. Gohan had ways to make Kurakin not even see King Yu's Gojian sword. Originally, Gohan planned to barge into the Sword Pavilion and snatch King Yu's Gojian sword into his dimensional pocket. Then, he would discuss the deal with the pavilion master he had met in Yanjing City. But what Gohan didn't expect was that Sword Immortal Tian Han would be right next to King Yu's Gojian sword. Moreover, he was standing with Kurakin. This caused Gohan's plan to fail. At the moment, Gohan didn't have the ability to snatch the sword mistress from an immortal sword tier sword wielder. If he couldn't snatch it, then there was nothing he could do. Gohan could only negotiate with Sword Immortal Tian Han in front of Kurakin. But Gahan was confident that Sword Immortal Tian Han wouldn't reject him once he saw his conditions. On the other hand, hearing Gahan's words, Ku Rakin was shocked. This Gahan actually wanted to trade King Yuzgo Jian's sword back to Yuzhong City? Then what was all his hard work for? He could just wait for Gahan to trade King Yuzgo Jian's sword into his hands, and then find him to negotiate. But what exactly did Gahan want to trade for King Yuzgo Jian's sword? This sword was a famed sword mistress left behind by Kinzu. Its status was even higher than that of a spirit sword mistress. It had reached the level of an immortal sword mistress. How could Sword Immortal Tian Han trade King Yuzgo Jian sword to Gahan? Trade? What a joke. Sword Immortal Tian Han humphed coldly. Who do you think you are, the previous sword pavilion master of Yuzhong City? Why do you have to negotiate with me? You're just an ordinary famed sword wielder. You don't have the right to negotiate with me. Then we'll wait. Very soon, someone who has the right to negotiate with Sword Immortal Tian Han will come. Gahan replied. The person who had the right to negotiate was naturally his disciple, Lu Shihua. The moment he entered Yanjing City, Gahan had already ordered Lu Shihua to rush to Yanjing City's sword pavilion immediately. He knew that Sword Immortal Tian Han would make things difficult for him. Gahan, can we talk about your deal later? Sword Immortal Tian Han has already promised me to negotiate with King Yuzgo Jian's sword. If I fail, you can discuss the trade later. How about that? Ku Rakin became anxious when he heard that they had to wait for someone to negotiate with. He was only one step away from obtaining King Yuzgo Jian's sword. He didn't want to wait another minute. Wait, your matter can wait. When I'm done with Sword Immortal Tian Han, I'll discuss this with you. Gahan turned his head and said to Ku Rakin with a complicated expression. Ku Rakin opened his mouth, but no words came out. Hee, I think this Yuzhong dude has a point. Since the person who wants to negotiate with me hasn't arrived yet, I might as well let him try first. If he succeeds, then wouldn't King Yuzgo Jian's sword belong to your Yuzhong City? When that happens, you'll have more confidence to negotiate with me. After saying this, Sword Immortal Tian Han winked at Ku Rakin and purposely pushed King Yuzgo Jian's sword towards Ku Rakin. That's right. Sword Immortal Tian Han has a point. Gahan, let me try first. You could talk after I'm done. As he said this, Ku Rakin was about to touch King Yuzgo Jian's sword. Looks like I'll have to shed all pretense of cordiality first. Gahan was exasperated. He definitely couldn't let Ku Rakin touch King Yuzgo Jian's sword. Just as he was about to stop Ku Rakin, he suddenly heard a commotion from downstairs. Then, he heard Lu Shihua's shrill shout. Master, I'm here. Master, your disciple is here. At this crucial moment, Lu Shihua finally arrived. Hearing Lu Shihua's voice, Ku Rakin thought for a moment, then retracted his hand that was reaching for King Yuzgo Jian's sword. Let go. Let go of me. My master told me to come. Lu Shihua shouted from downstairs. Clearly, the staff downstairs had asked Lu Shihua to stop. Lu Shihua was just an ordinary person right now. Any sword bearers could stop her. Let her come up. She's the Yuzhong City Sword Court's pavilion master. Are you going to let her down? Sword Immortal Tian Han said sarcastically from upstairs. The staff downstairs let go of Lu Shihua's body, allowing Lu Shihua to jog up to the third floor. You're the Yuzhong City Sword Court's pavilion master? The sword spirit of Tian Hen circled around Lu Shihua, looking at her body from head to toe. Lu Shihua felt a chill run down her spine. Sword Immortal Tian Han continued. I thought Pavilion Master Lu Shihua was a great beauty. Otherwise, Pavilion Master Gahan wouldn't have fallen in love with you. He actually passed the position of Yuzhong City Sword Court's Pavilion Master to you. Now, it seems that I've really misunderstood Pavilion Master Gahan. Sword Immortal Tian Han's words were clearly mocking Gahan for passing the position of Sword Court's Pavilion Master to Lu Shihua because he was infatuated with Lu Shihua's beauty. These words caused Lu Shihua's entire face to turn red. Senior Sword Immortal Tian Han, you're also a senior of the human race. You should be careful when you speak without evidence. Gahan replied bluntly. Forget it. Your Yuzhong City Sword Court's affairs have nothing to do with me. I just want to know what this Pavilion Master Lu Shihua wants to trade with me. The two of you better not joke around with me. Otherwise, even if you're both Yuzhong City Sword Court's Pavilion Masters, you'll still have to pay a few layers of skin before you leave. Who asked the Yuzhong City Sword Court's Pavilion Masters to be so worthless? Sword Immortal Tian Han was constantly mocking Guhan and the Yuzhong City Sword Court. Don't worry, it's fine as long as Senior Sword Immortal Tian Han doesn't ask us to trade with you. Guhan replied coldly. Sword Immortal Tian Han didn't take Guhan's words to heart. He didn't believe that Guhan would take out something he couldn't refuse to trade with him. Even if the item he took out was indeed more valuable than the Yu King Gojin sword, Sword Immortal Tian Han was a man of integrity. He had made up his mind that he wouldn't trade with Guhan. He was going to anger Guhan to death. Senior Sword Immortal Tian Han, please take a look. I wonder if this item is to your liking. Guhan suddenly pulled out a long sword from his dimensional pocket. This long sword was completely golden, and there were extremely complicated and strange patterns carved on it. What kind of sh*t is this? Sword Immortal Tian Han wanted to say what kind of sh*t it was, but when he saw the strange patterns, he couldn't take his eyes off it. Suddenly, Sword Immortal Tian Han took out a magnifying glass from his dimensional pocket. He threw himself in front of Guhan without a care for his image. He grabbed the golden long sword in Guhan's hand with one hand and raised the magnifying glass with the other. He carefully examined every detail of the golden long sword. After examining it for a whole 20 minutes, he stood up in a daze. The Yu King Gojin sword is yours, but this sword belongs to the Yin Jing City Sword Court. Sword Immortal Tian Han said with a sigh of relief. Chapter 716. Sword Immortal Tian Han couldn't suppress the excitement in his heart. He tried to snatch the golden long sword from Guhan's hand. However, just as Sword Immortal Tian Han exerted some force, he discovered that his hand was empty. The golden long sword had disappeared without a trace. Guhan had probably placed it back into his dimensional pocket. Guhan, what are you trying to do? Are you going to go back on your word? Sword Immortal Tian Han snapped. It was as if Guhan had stolen his entire family's fortune. Sword Immortal Tian Han, who had just decided to reject all of Guhan's offers, was now extremely eager to obtain the golden longsword. Even if Guhan asked him to squat on the ground and bark like a dog, Sword Immortal Tian Han would probably reconsider whether or not to agree to Guhan's conditions. I'm sure everyone has already guessed that the golden longsword Guhan was offering was the Emperor's sword, the Xianyuan sword, that I Ching had given to Guhan. Since ancient times, no sword pavilion lord had been able to resist the temptation of an Emperor's sword. If he could add a Jiandi to his sword pavilion, then even if he had to give up his life for it, this sword pavilion lord would never regret it. Moreover, Sword Immortal Tian Han only needed to pay the price of a famed sword maiden in exchange for an Emperor's sword maiden forever. He wouldn't come across such a good deal even after 500 years. How could Sword Immortal Tian Han not agree? Just as Guhan had said, what he was most afraid of was Guhan going back on his word. He didn't want this deal to go through. I, Guhan, am a man of my word. I won't go back on my word. Guhan pursed his lips. Sword Immortal Tian Han was no longer the one with the upper hand in this deal, but himself. Of course, Guhan had to take advantage of him. Where's the Yu King Gojin sword? If you don't give me the Yu King Gojin sword, how can I give you the Xianyuan sword? This really is the Xianyuan sword. Sword Immortal Tian Han became even more excited upon hearing Guhan reveal the name of the Xianyuan sword. Just now, he could sense the immense power within the sword and ascertain that it was undoubtedly an Emperor's sword. However, Sword Immortal Tian Han wasn't sure which Emperor's sword it was, even though he could vaguely sense that it was the Xianyuan sword based on the patterns on the sword. Sword Immortal Tian Han knew about this sword. When he had just become an immortal sword wielder, he had gone to see how Tian Jiandi. Then, how Tian Jiandi had told Sword Immortal Tian Han everything that had happened in Changyang Mountain. Only now did Sword Immortal Tian Han learn that an Emperor's sword had once brushed shoulders with the Yanjing Sword Pavilion. Moreover, it was the legendary Xianyuan sword, the #1 Emperor's sword. Sword Immortal Tion Hen's heart almost broke when he heard this news. He didn't think that the Xianyuan sword would deliver itself to him at a time like this. Gahan, what are you doing? Hearing the Xianyuan sword's name, Ku Rakin jumped up. He grabbed Gahan's hand and said agitatedly, Gahan, are you crazy? You want to use the Xianyuan sword to trade for the Yu King Gojian sword? Even 100 or 1,000 Yu King Gojian swords can't compare to a single Xianyuan sword. You actually want to use it for a trade? You must be crazy. This deal doesn't count. Of course, Ku Rakin knew that Gahan would suffer a great loss from this trade. No, it was Yuzhong City that would suffer a great loss. As a citizen of Yuzhong City, Ku Rakin would never allow such a ridiculous trade to take place before his eyes. This was an Emperor's Sword Empress, not some Spirit Sword Empress. Let go of me. I've already decided on the trade. There's no need for you to stop me. Gahan flung Ku Rakin's hand away and said coldly, Looks like you really are crazy. Gahan, I'm telling you, you don't have the right to make this trade. Ku Rakin blocked in front of Gahan. You're no longer the Sword Pavilion Master. You don't have the right to make any decisions on behalf of the Sword Pavilion. It's even more impossible for you to initiate this stupid trade. I'm going to report this to Master Lu Lei and let him stop you. Ku Rakin, you're mistaken. This sword is mine, mine alone. It doesn't belong to Yuzhong City's Sword Pavilion. I have the right to make any decision regarding this sword. You don't have the right to interfere. Move aside. Gahan flung Ku Rakin, who was blocking in front of him. No, I won't allow you to do such a thing. I won't move aside even if I die. Ku Rakin was even more thorough this time. He actually hugged Gahan's waist and buried his head in Gahan's chest. To put it bluntly, if you didn't consider the gender difference between Gahan and Ku Rakin, they looked like two young lovers who were having an argument. Lu Shihua, Pavilion Master Lu Shihua. Although I don't approve of you becoming the Pavilion Master, since you're standing in the position of the Pavilion Master, please do your duty. Chase this crazy guy out. Don't let him use our Yuzhong City's treasure, the Xianyuan sword, as a bargaining chip. Ku Rakin hugged Gahan. He turned his head and said to Lu Shihua, telling her to stop Gahan. Needless to say, in terms of management, Lu Shihua indeed had the right to order Gahan to end this damn deal. The reason was simple. Lu Shihua was the Pavilion Master of Yuzhong City's Sword Pavilion, while Gahan was just an ordinary sword bearer in Yuzhong City. Moreover, this trade involved the Sword Maiden, who was under the jurisdiction of Sword Pavilion. Lu Shihua naturally had the right to order Gahan around, even though Gahan was the previous Pavilion Master. Gahan, don't be stupid. Have you forgotten? Just now, Sword Immortal Tion Hen agreed to let me synchronize with the Yu King Gojian sword. Don't worry, I have full confidence that I can synchronize with the Yu King Gojian sword. Ku Rakin moved his mouth next to Gahan's ear and bit Gahan's ear. As long as I synchronize with the Yu King Gojian sword, it'll be the same as having the Yu King Gojian sword in Yuzhong City's hands. You'll have more than 40 years to negotiate with Yanjing City's Sword Pavilion. You'll be able to trade for the Yu King Gojian sword at a fair price instead of ruining the Xianyuan sword. Do you understand? Ku Rakin's persuasion was very well-intentioned. On one hand, he tried to persuade Lu Shihua to stop Gahan. On the other hand, he helped Gahan think of a roundabout way to save the country. Unfortunately, he had no idea what Gahan was really thinking, what Gahan wanted, or what Gahan's real plan was. Enough. Get out of my way. Sword Immortal Tion Hen finally came back to his senses. He realized that it was very likely that Zhu Luren would stop this once-in-a-lifetime deal. This deal would allow him, Sword Immortal Tion Hen, to make a great contribution. This deal would allow the Sword Pavilion of Yanjing to have its sixth Emperor sword, the Sword Mother. Sword Immortal Tion Hen was instantly enraged. He unceremoniously pushed Zhu Luren to the side. Then, Ku Rakin, who felt as if the back of his skull had been shattered, heard Sword Immortal Tion Hen say these words to him. Did you think I couldn't hear what you whispered to me just now? Did you think I couldn't detect your sinister plan? You want to shamelessly detain the Yu King Gojian sword in Yuzhong City and never return it to us, right? I'm telling you, stop dreaming. Sword Immortal Tian Hen humphed coldly. Get out of my way. Get out of my way right now. I won't let you synchronize with the Yu King Gojian sword. Tian Hen, swear to the heavens right now. You will never touch the Yu King Gojian sword for the rest of your life. Even if you can synchronize with the Yu King Gojian sword successfully, it will be nothing but a dream. Just wait in your dreams for this day to come. I. Hearing Sword Immortal Tian Hen's words, Ku Rakin felt as if his chest had been smashed by a sledgehammer that weighed several tons. He couldn't even breathe. One could only imagine the pain in Ku Rakin's heart at this moment. The Yu King Gojian sword, whom he viewed as his lifelong goal, was forever lost to him because of a single sentence from Sword Immortal Tian Hen. This was like a person's first girlfriend. Because of her father's disapproval, she would never be able to be with him. Later on, Ku Rakin wrote this in his own memoirs. At this moment, I feel like dying. If it weren't for the fact that my father's figure appeared in my mind, I would have never fulfilled my father's dream. I'm afraid that in this world, Sword Immortal Sha wouldn't exist. If someone asked me if I would hate Gahan in my heart, I would only say, F***ck them. Phew. Hearing Sword Immortal Tian Hen's words, Gohan finally let out a long sigh of relief. He didn't expect Ku Rakin to cooperate with him like this. He even offered to help him detain the Yu King Gojian sword. He wanted Sword Immortal Tian Hen to fly into a rage and forever forbid Ku Rakin from synchronizing with the Yu King Gojian sword. It wasn't easy to put on this show. It wasn't easy to make someone as smart as Gahan act like an idiot. Gahan wasn't an idiot. How could he really exchange the Xian Yuan sword for the Yu King Gojian sword? Even an idiot wouldn't do such a thing. Actually, Gahan was only putting on an act for Ku Rakin and Sword Immortal Tian Hen to see. He wanted Sword Immortal Tian Hen to say that he would never allow Ku Rakin to synchronize with the Yu King Gojian sword. As long as Sword Immortal Tian Hen said this, then Sword Immortal Tian Hen would never go back on his word. Whether it was for his face or for his own benefit, he couldn't go back on his word. Even if Ku Rakin didn't jump out to stop him, Gahan would still slowly guide Ku Rakin and Sword Immortal Tian Hen. To make Sword Immortal Tian Hen suspect Ku Rakin, just the slightest bit of suspicion would cause Sword Immortal Tian Hen to immediately retract his agreement to allow Ku Rakin to synchronize with the Yu King Gojian sword. He would also forbid Ku Rakin and the people of Yuzhong City from ever touching the Yu King Gojian sword. In fact, he might even refuse to allow anyone to synchronize with the Yu King Gojian sword, so that Gahan could keep the Yu King Gojian sword safe until he found severed black hair. Gahan believed that Sword Immortal Tian Hen would carry out this order with unwavering determination. As long as he still had any illusions about the Xian Yuan sword, then he would definitely do it. Otherwise, if the Yu King Gojian sword was synchronized with someone else, what would he use to exchange for the Xian Yuan sword? Chapter 717. Tian Heng. How dare you injure a brother from Yuzhong City? Do you still have any sword bearer's ancestral techniques? Gohan took advantage of the moment when Ku Rakin was slapped into the wall by Sword Immortal Tian Heng to rush over to Ku Rakin's side. Then, he pulled Ku Rakin into his arms and yelled angrily at Sword Immortal Tian Heng. Senior Sword Immortal Tian Heng, this matter won't end so easily. It looks like we can't continue with this deal. When Brother Ku Rakin recovers, we can talk about this again. After saying this, he picked up Ku Rakin and Lu Shihua's hand. He was about to leave the sword pavilion with the two of them. Oomph. You dare to talk about ancestral techniques with me? Fine, I'll have plenty of time to talk about ancestral techniques with you. Mr. Gahan, former Sword Pavilion Lord, just wait for the Sword Pavilion headquarters to issue a summons to you. Sword Immortal Tian Heng threatened. This was Yin Jing City's territory. Why would he be afraid of a guy from Yuzhong City? At the same time, Sword Immortal Tian Heng handed the Yu King Gojian sword to a sword bearer behind him. Then, in a loud voice, he instructed the sword bearer, Lock this Yu King Go Jian sword on the 6th floor. Keep it with the sword empresses. Do you understand? The 6th floor of the sword pavilion had always been used to keep sword empresses of the Yu King Go Jian sword. It was heavily guarded, especially against the sword bearers. Unless the sword bearers were immortal sword tier or above, there was no way they could force their way into the 6th floor. As for immortal sword tier sword bearers, as long as they asked which sword empress they wanted to synchronize with, no city sword pavilion could refuse them. They didn't even need to force their way into the 6th floor. No, the half-asleep Ku Rakin let out a heart-wrenching howl. He knew that sword immortal Tian Hung was determined to not give him a chance to synchronize with the king of Yu, Go Jian Jian. Once the sword was placed on the 6th floor of the sword pavilion, unless Gahan really made a deal with the sword pavilion of Yanjing, he would never be able to see the king of Yu, Go Jian 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 Jian. Seeing this, Gahan heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Everything had gone more smoothly than he had imagined. Sword immortal Tian Hen had actually made up his mind to hide the Go Jian sword, the king of Yu, on the 6th floor of the sword pavilion. In that case, unless sword immortal Tian Hen knew his true intentions, he would definitely use the Go Jian sword, the king of Yu, as a bargaining chip. Even the people of Yanjing City would not be able to communicate with the Go Jian sword, the king of Yu. This was because sword immortal Tian Hung never would have imagined that Gahan, who had already become a famed sword wielder, would actually want to use Azure Sever to sever the sword mistress within his body. Gohan's true goal was actually to prevent others from synchronizing with the sword of Yu King Gojian. Once Gahan had successfully severed the Juzi sword, Gahan had plenty of ways to force sword immortal Tian Hen to hand over the Go Jian sword of the Yu King. Things were progressing smoothly. Gahan watched as Yu King Go Jian Jian was about to leave the 3rd level. Just as he was about to relax, something unexpected happened. "Who is it? Who hurt my father? Step out." At this moment, a young and shrill voice filled with the smell of a Lolita roared in an incomparably violent tone. Sha Sha, who had been wandering around downstairs, had somehow made her way up to the 3rd floor. When she saw her father covered in wounds and blood flowing from the corner of his mouth, she was instantly enraged. F***CK. That Yuzhong bastard really is Yuzhong bastard. He doesn't even know how to raise a child. Throw her out. Since when does our sword pavilion allow children to enter? Sword immortal Tian Hung was also filled with displeasure when he heard Sha Sha's roar at him. He immediately gave an order to another famed sword wielder beside him. The famed sword wielder immediately accepted the order and prepared to pick Sha Sha up and bring her out of the sword pavilion. "Don't touch me." Sha Sha suddenly revealed an extremely horrified expression. Then, her hair suddenly began to grow, splitting into 9 braids that shot out in all directions like a series of giant snakes. What a familiar battle scene. Seeing this, a name instinctively surfaced in Gohan's mind. He was just about to recite the name when the hair suddenly began to emit a blinding light. Crap! I can't move at all. After the light faded, Gohan discovered that he was unable to move. He couldn't even control a single hair on his body. This feeling was similar to when Gahan had become Gu Xin Yuan and was unable to effectively control his own body. Only Guhan's consciousness was clear. Like Guhan wasn't the only one who couldn't move. Lu Shihua, LV Hao, the 2 famed sword-tier swordsmen, and even a mighty immortal sword-tier swordsman, sword immortal Tian Hung, were all frozen to the spot. Their expressions were so stiff that it was almost comical. It was as if they were emoticons used in online chats. They looked like they were crying yet not crying, smiling yet not smiling, mocking yet not joking, angry yet not angry. If they could take a picture of this emoticon and post it online, it would definitely become the best emoticon of the year. Sha Sha, what are you doing? Right now, there were only 2 people who could move. One was naturally Sha Sha, who had caused all of this, and the other was Sha Sha's father, Ku Rakin. Daddy, they're all bad people. If they dare to hurt you, Sha Sha will turn them into stone. Sha Sha jumped back onto Ku Rakin's shoulder, waving her little fists as she spoke angrily. Sha Sha had done this to avenge her father. Sha Sha, you've made a big mistake. Kurakin didn't know what to say to Sha Sha. He wanted to give her a good scolding, but Sha Sha had done this for him. She had only done this out of anger after seeing him injured. At the end of the day, it was because Sha Sha loved him. Praise her, what kind of joke was this? She had turned the current Sword Tower Master of Yinjing City and Sword Tower Master of Yuzhong City into stone. This was not a small matter. It was enough for Kurakin to be locked up for several years. Sha Sha, will they be able to get out of their petrified state after 10 seconds? Kurakin asked Sha Sha as he recalled his battle with Lu Hao. Lu Hao had also been petrified. No. At that time, Sha Sha was in a good mood. She was just playing around with her opponent. Now that Sha Sha is in a bad mood, Sha Sha will turn them into stone for an hour. Let's see if they still dare to bully Daddy. Sha Sha pouted. Good heavens, she actually wanted to set a time limit for an hour. If Kurakin had any evil intentions, he only needed to attack once. And the Sword Tower of Yinjing City and Sword Tower of Yuzhong City would both lose their Sword Tower Masters at the same time. Of course, Kurakin wasn't that crazy. But this also allowed Kurakin to see an opportunity. Because everyone was already petrified, Yuking Go Jiao Jian was left on the ground. As long as Kurakin walked to Yuking Go Jiao Jian and gently picked up Yuking Go Jiao Jian, then his lifelong dream would instantly come true. But if he did that, Kurakin would be breaking the rules of Sword Tower. When Sword Immortal Tian Hen recovered, he definitely wouldn't let Kurakin off. What should he do? This was a choice. If Kurakin stayed here and didn't move, and when Sword Immortal Tian Hen recovered, he might just accept a lighter punishment. But if Kurakin took the opportunity to synchronize with Yuking Go Jiao Jian, then when Sword Immortal Tian Hen recovered, he would definitely give Kurakin a terrible punishment. This was a very difficult choice to make. But Kurakin only took a second to decide. Sha Sha, help me up, Kurakin said to Sha Sha. And so, Sha Sha helped Kurakin free from Gohan's petrified embrace. Just like that, Gohan watched as Kurakin slowly left him. Watched as Kurakin got closer and closer to Yuking Go Jiao Jian. Watched as Kurakin and Yuking Go Jiao Jian were about to collide. It was very difficult to describe Gohan's current feelings. To put it simply, he was like a bomb that was about to explode. But his body was like a rock that couldn't explode, so what would explode was only his consciousness. After so many schemes and plots, in the end, he still didn't gamble with fate. Instead, he was toyed with by fate. This time, there was no accident, no main character aura, and no peerless expert suddenly appeared to push Kurakin away at the critical moment, preventing Kurakin from touching Yuking Go Jiao Jian. The only thing Gohan could hope for was that Kurakin would encounter the 10% failure rate. Even if he held Yuking Go Jiao Jian, he wouldn't be able to synchronize with Yuking Go Jiao Jian. With a very simple bending motion, Kurakin held Yuking Go Jiao Jian in his hand. Then, Kurakin's body also started to petrify. Sha Sha didn't glow, which meant that Kurakin's body was synchronized with Yuking Go Jiao Jian. Dad, what's wrong? Sha Sha didn't want to petrify you. Sha Sha didn't know about the synchronization process. So when she saw Kurakin petrified, she thought that she had accidentally petrified Kurakin as well. Petrify release. Sha Sha swung her hair, and everyone's petrified state was removed. Ha! Sword Immortal Tian Hong went crazy as soon as he was released from his petrified state. He had been tricked by a mere treasured sword wielder and was petrified for a few minutes. If word of this got out, Sword Immortal Tian Hong would probably become a joke on the forums. Story. Plot. This was something that the proud Sword Immortal Tian Hong would never be able to accept. So Sword Immortal Tian Hong immediately acted. The immortal sword wielder in his hand was instantly released, and it grabbed at Sha Sha at lightning speed. On the other hand, Sha Sha seemed a little weak after everyone's petrification. Faced with the attack of an immortal sword wielder, she couldn't resist at all. She was caught by the immortal sword wielder. Turn her back into her immortal sword wielder form, then seal her. Sword Immortal Tian Hong ordered his own immortal sword wielder. This little girl is an immortal sword wielder. The immortal sword wielder sensed Sha's body, then frowned. She's not human either. Could she be a Yuan Ko? Yuan Ko? How could there be a Yuan Ko in Yin Jing City? Sword immortal Tian Hong regained some of his rationality, and he exclaimed in shock. Tian Hong, what should I do with her? The immortal sword wielder asked. Then lock her up like Yuan Ko, and that Yuzhong bastard, who's in a synchronized state, capture him too and lock him up in the disciplinary committee for discipline inspection. I'm going to make him pay. Sword immortal Tian Hong said, with a horrified expression. Let's go. On the other side, Gohan had also recovered. He grabbed Lu Shihua's hand and was about to leave the sword pavilion. Otherwise, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to control his impulse and use the immortal sword wielder grafting technique, or just kill Kurakin and take the Yu King Go Jian sword. On the way out of the sword pavilion, Gohan warned himself. Gohan, don't be rash. Things aren't over yet. There must be a way to stop this. That's right. You don't care about the Yu King Go Jian sword. You only care about the Yu King. The Yu King is not the Yu King Go Jian sword. The Yu King you care about is only a fragment of the game's consciousness. It's the memories and personality contained in this fragment of consciousness. You still have time. Log into the game immediately and think of a way to separate the Yu King's consciousness fragment from the game. Save her consciousness fragment and prevent it from being absorbed by the real Yu King Go Jian sword. This way, the Yu King still has a chance to live. Chapter 718. Unlike other people, if other people were to stand in Gohan's position and encounter the same situation as Gohan, they would be shocked. However, this was not the case for Gohan. One of his greatest strengths was that he could always maintain his rationality and use the Kama state to think of ways to change seemingly impossible things. Therefore, Gohan really came up with a solution. First of all, Kurakin couldn't be killed. Although Kurakin was a little Chinibyu, it was undeniable that he was a good man. Moreover, at the critical moment, he had rushed out to stop Gohan for the benefit of Yuzhong City. Gohan believed that Sword Immortal Tian Hong must have guessed that Sword Immortal Tian Hong would use the Yu King Gojin sword to retaliate against him. However, Sword Immortal Tian Hong still rushed out without hesitation. Not to mention that Kurakin had helped Gohan on the day of the trial. Gohan was able to retain his position as the Sword Firmament Pavilion's pavilion master because of his 1 million votes. If Gohan killed Kurakin, wouldn't he be biting the hand that fed him? In that case, what was the difference between Gohan and Yuan Ko? Since he couldn't kill Kurakin, could he use Sword Maiden grafting to steal King Yu from Kurakin? It was just like what Gohan had done to Kinzu in the game. The answer was also no. The reason was very simple. It was because the Sword Maiden grafting could only be used once in a sword wielder's life. It was absolutely impossible to use a second time. Otherwise, the sword wielder would die because of the chaos in his Zifu. Gohan had already used Sword Maiden grafting on Gu Yun, so he couldn't use it again. Therefore, after much thought, Gohan only had one solution left. That was to extract King Yu's consciousness fragment from a game. The reason why Gohan had made up his mind to get King Yu's Go Jian sword was because of his deep relationship with King Yu in-game. Therefore, what he really wanted was the King of Yu in the game and not the King of Yu in real life, Go Jian Jian. However, only after Gohan synchronized King Yu's Go Jian sword would King Yu's consciousness fragment return to King Yu's main body in real life. The memories of the two would fuse together, allowing Gohan and King Yu to be together in real life. That was his main goal. Once upon a time, Gohan had neglected this goal. The moment he learned that King Yu's Go Jian sword was synchronized by Kurakin, Gohan came to a realization and remembered his main goal. Although he understood his main goal, the current situation was still extremely dangerous for Gohan. When Kurakin and King Yu's Go Jian sword successfully synchronized. Once Kurakin logged into the game with King Yu's main body, all of King Yu's consciousness fragments would return to his main body. The consciousness fragment in Gohan's hands was no exception. Although Gohan's King Yu would remain in Gohan's hands, at that time, King Yu would be no different from an artificial sword maiden without intelligence. The deep bond between Gohan and King Yu would also return to King Yu's main body with the return of the Jade Fragment. As for whether King Yu's main body would retain this memory or delete it, that wasn't something Gohan could decide. However, regardless of whether King Yu's main body would retain it or delete it, it would be an absolute torture for Gohan. Thus, the most urgent thing for Gohan was to think of a way to bring King Yu's consciousness fragment out of the game or isolate King Yu's consciousness fragment. He couldn't let King Yu's memory return to King Yu's main body. As for what happened after that, he didn't have a better idea. Perhaps he could create a virtual game space for King Yu and have his consciousness fragment live in this virtual space. He could enter this virtual space by entering the game and be with King Yu. Although this was a pain in the ass, and he still wouldn't be able to meet King Yu in the real world, this was the best solution Gohan could think of. After leaving Yinjing Sword Tower, Gohan immediately rushed to Song Yifei's temporary residence under Liu Shihua's lead. He still had to log into the game at Song Yifei's house and find Tamono Kakashi to isolate King Yu's consciousness fragment. The silver lining in the misfortune was that Zhu Vrin was sent to the Commission for Discipline Inspection by the Heaven Scar Sword. The Discipline Inspection Commission cell didn't allow anyone to go online, and it was impossible for the Discipline Inspection Commission to try Wu Dao's case at night. Thus, before the next day, Ku Rakin definitely wouldn't be able to log into the game. This gave Gohan time to deal with the problem. Gohan had to use the fastest speed to isolate King Yu's consciousness fragment before Ku Rakin logged into the game. Even if he was a second late, it would be a huge difference. Gohan, you're back. Have you had dinner? I only made some food for lunch. Do you want me to heat it up for you? Song Yifei saw that Gohan had returned and was pleasantly surprised. He warmly greeted Gohan and prepared to heat up the food for him. Yifei, I'm very busy right now. I can't eat anything. Don't worry about me. Go do your own thing, Gohan said and left Song Yifei in a hurry. Seeing Gohan's reaction, Song Yifei felt wronged. Two crystal-clear tears welled up in his eyes and were about to fall. However, before the tear could fall, Gohan returned to Song Yifei's side. Yifei, where's my room? Why don't I see it? Song Yifei's temporary home wasn't big. It only had 2 bedrooms. Gohan glanced at both bedrooms. They were filled with women's things. It was obvious that they were Song Yifei's and Liu Ling's rooms. I thought you were going to stay at Ling's house today, so I didn't. Song Yifei panicked and said, Gohan, wait. I'll clean up Ling's room right now. No need. It's too late. Gohan shook his head immediately. He hesitated for a while and asked Song Yifei, which of these 2 rooms is yours? That. Song Yifei pointed at the door of his room. Yifei, I'm sorry. I'll use my room first. You can sleep in Ling's room first. I'll replace all the things that I've used with new ones. Gohan said in a hurry and rushed into Song Yifei's room. Qingpin, Guyun, Iqian, and you, Juzi, both of you should enter my purple mansion and enter the game with me. After hearing Gohan's words, Qingpin and Guyun, who were rushing into the kitchen, grimaced unwillingly and walked into Song Yifei's room painfully. They turned into swords and returned to Gohan's purple mansion. What's going on? Song Yifei then realized that something was wrong. Something serious happened to Gohan, forcing him to enter the game immediately. But what's the problem? Song Yifei touched his head but couldn't figure it out. Gohan, you're in Yinjing City. King Yu, who was sitting in the room in a daze, was pleasantly surprised to find that Gohan was online. When Gohan went offline last time, he clearly told King Yu that he wouldn't be able to log into the game for a long time because he had to take the armored levitating train to Yinjing City. This was the first time King Yu heard that Gohan was going offline for a long time. He was so happy that he was about to go crazy because this meant that Gohan was going to synchronize with her real body, King Yu Gojin Jianjian. She finally didn't have to spend the days that they could only meet in-game with Gohan. He could finally be with Gohan in real life. How could King Yu not be excited? However, King Yu was still a little disappointed when he saw Gohan come online. This was because she didn't feel like she was being summoned or attracted. This meant that Gohan didn't synchronize with her real body. Otherwise, the moment Gohan logged in, King Yu's consciousness would immediately be sucked back into her real body. Perhaps I arrived in Yinjing City too late. Gahan will only go to Sword Pavilion tomorrow to synchronize with his real body. King Yu thought of a reasonable explanation for himself and excitedly pounced into Gahan's arms. However, what happened next made King Yu feel a little embarrassed. Other than Gahan, Heaven, Yi, and Juzi, the sword lady whom King Yu had met in the past 2 months, also appeared in the game. When Gahan came online more than 10 times, Heaven, Yi, and Juzi's real bodies didn't follow and stayed in reality. This was because Gahan didn't need them to come online. He only needed their sword forms in-game. In addition, Heaven, Yi, and Juzi didn't seem to like the in-game environment and never took the initiative to ask Gahan to enter the game. Therefore, they were already online and Gahan came alone. King Yu was happy to enjoy the two of them alone and do some shameless things with Gahan. But now, Heaven, Yi, and Juzi enter the game. This wasn't a big deal. What King Yu didn't dare to imagine was that there was another Lolita sword lady who entered the game behind Heaven, Yi, and King Yu. This was the first time King Yu saw this Lolita sword lady. King Yu knew that in reality, Gahan had 2 other sword ladies. They were Qingpin's sword and Doyu's sword. However, these 2 sword ladies hated entering the game even more than Heaven, Yi, and Juzi's sword. From the moment King Yu heard their names, he hadn't seen them come online at all. In other words, this was the first time King Yu had seen Qingpin's sword or Doyu's sword. According to Heaven, Yi, Gahan's favorite sword lady in reality was Qingpin's sword. However, he didn't know if this Lolita ship lady was Qingpin's sword or Doyu's sword. Chapter 719. The lowly sword lady that appeared in front of King Yu was naturally Douyu Jian. In fact, Qingpin had also logged into the game. However, just like at the beginning, Qingpin was still chained up in the game. He could not transform into the sword lady form in the game, so he could not appear in front of King Yu. Therefore, Qingpin was constantly complaining in Gahan's head. He complained about why Gahan wanted him to log into the game, causing his hands and feet to be chained up. It was so uncomfortable. All right, today's matter is a bit urgent. If it's not necessary in the future, I won't let you log into the game. Guhai said to Qingpin angrily. The reason why he wanted all the sword ladies to enter the game was because of Tamono Kakazi's orders. On the way back to Song Ifei's house, Gahan contacted Tamono Kakazi and told Tamono Kakazi about his situation. Originally, Tamono Kakazi did not want to care about this matter because it would not benefit him at all. Instead, it would expose him. However, Gahan threatened Tamono Kakazi that if he could not isolate King Yu's consciousness fragment, then Gahan would never log into the game again. He wanted to leave this sad place completely. This made Tamono Kakazi very helpless. She had her plan, and in order to realize it, Gahan had to enter the game. Therefore, Tamono Kakazi had no choice but to accompany Gahan and think for a long time before reminding Gahan of this matter. What happened to Gahan? Why do I feel like something is wrong? When King Yu saw that almost all of Gahan's sword ladies appeared in the game at the same time, he instinctively felt that something big was about to happen, and the source of this big thing might be him. King Yu, something unexpected has happened, but don't worry, I have a way to deal with it. You stay here and chat with Etian and the others. I'll be back soon. After saying this, Guhan suddenly disappeared in front of King Yu. No one knew where he went. This was the second time Gahan came to Tamono Kakazi's residence. It was a Gothic castle and a huge room decorated with cute pink princesses. In this room, Guhan once again saw Tamono Kakazi with an unhappy expression. I'm so unlucky to be your friend. When she saw Gahan, Tamono Kakazi pouted and complained, What nonsense are you talking about? Why should I care about your nonsense? You're so annoying. It's useless to say anything else, Nina-chan. I owe you a huge favor this time. As long as you help me this time, I'll do my best to repay you. Gahan said to Tamono Kakazi very sincerely. Hearing Guhan's expression, the fragrant wind Tamono's grumbles were restrained by quite a bit, and a trace of unexpected caution appeared. This isn't going to be easy. Tamono Kakazi took the Angora rabbit off her head and slowly rubbed it in her hand. Those who were familiar with Tomono Kakaze would know that once Tomono Kakaze took the Angora rabbit off her head, it meant that Tomono Kakaze was in distress. There's no item in the game that can isolate the natural sword maiden's consciousness. Tomono Sasuke's spread his hands. Although I was very sure of this, I still thoroughly searched through my database twice for you. Then, I can tell you again with great certainty that there is no such item in the game. Damn it. Gohan clenches fists. According to Gohan's plan, the best way was to have an item in the game that could isolate the natural sword maiden's consciousness. Then, he would use this item to seal King use memory fragments. First, he would prevent the risk of her merging with King use Gojin sword. Then, he would think of a way to separate her consciousness fragments. Although Gohan was very familiar with the game, he couldn't remember the existence of such an item. Therefore, Gohan asked Tomono Kakaze to search his database to see if there was such an item. Now that the game's core artificial intelligence, Tomono Kakaze, said that there was no such item, it seemed that there was indeed no such item in the game. Hearing this, Gohan's heart fell into a dead silence. This eliminated half of Gohan's hope. Also, you want to directly separate a natural sword maiden's consciousness fragments from the game system. When I heard this request, I was almost scared to death. The ship girl's consciousness fragments are stored in the game system through a very complicated algorithm. Moreover, it's not that I don't control them. They're stored in a separate electronic container. That container is like a login terminal. All the Sword Maiden's consciousness fragments are stored in that container. It's just that they stay logged in all year round. If you want to legally separate their consciousness fragments, you must first separate them from that container. Let alone the fact that I can't do this with my current ability. Even if I could, I wouldn't dare to do it. This container is in the hands of that pervert, Xian. If I do anything to that thing, he'll immediately teach me a lesson. He might even reformat my recent memories. I won't take this risk for you, Tomono Kakaze said honestly. Is that so? Then I'll have to trouble you. Gohan's tone was very calm, but the slight tremble at the end showed how excited his heart was. Just now, Tomono Kakaze's words were equivalent to a death sentence for betraying King Yu. Temporarily isolating King Yu's consciousness fragments was impossible. Completely separating King Yu's consciousness fragments was even more impossible. Wouldn't Gohan have no choice but to helplessly wait for Ku Raken to log in, then watch as King Yu's main body takes away his King Yu? What? Our famous military governor is also sad. He knows despair? Tomono Kakaze suddenly revealed a delighted smile. Seeing Tomono Kakaze's smile, Gohan's heart immediately calmed down. It seemed like Tomono Kakaze was purposely teasing him. Either what she said was a lie, or she had other ways to help him. Miss Tomono Kakaze, please don't tease me anymore. You know my time is very tight right now. Every second is very precious to me. If you have a way to help me, please tell me immediately. I'll be eternally grateful. Gohan's voice was a little hoarse and even choked. This made Tomono Kakaze, who was still snickering, unable to continue her performance. All right, I won't tease you anymore. Tomono Kakaze stuck out her tongue. I didn't have a way at first, but for some reason, a way suddenly popped up on its own 10 minutes ago. A way popped up on its own? What did that mean? Gohan was confused, but Tomono Kakaze quickly explained. Just 10 minutes ago, when I was checking my database again, I suddenly discovered an abnormality in the system. You don't know? But ever since you logged into the game, I haven't found any abnormalities for more than 10 years. I don't even know how many abnormalities I've found in the past 4 months. Tomono Kakaze looked at Gohan with hatred, as if all these abnormalities were caused by Gohan. However, when she thought about it, it seemed that it was the truth. All the abnormalities were directly or indirectly related to Gohan. I carefully checked this abnormality and found that it came from a famed sword-level dungeon, but I don't know what this abnormality is exactly. Everything is shrouded in mystery. Even I, the game's core artificial intelligence, can't figure it out. But I've already encountered this situation 2 or 3 times. Every time, it was that big bastard Jatian who dug a hole for me. so I guess that Jatian left it here on purpose. When Tamono Kakazi mentioned the name yesterday, he angrily clenched his little fist and then continuously knocked the head of the Angora rabbit in his hand. This bitter Angora rabbit was knocked to the point that tears were about to flow out. Then, I carefully checked it 5 times. Among all the codes that I could find, I found 2 very strange codes. After saying that, Tamono Kakazi projected the 2 codes before Gahan. They were 2 strings of hundreds of digits. Unfortunately, Gahan was unable to understand the code. These 2 strings of codes actually represent 2 names. Tamono Kakazi's proud eyes revealed a look that said, "So, there are things that you don't know." The first code says military governor, while the second one says king of you. You are so smart. You should be able to guess what this means. What do you mean is that? This is actually the instance dungeon that I Ching prepared for me. These 2 codes are a hint to me. She told me that as long as I enter this instance dungeon, I will be able to find a way to save King of you. Gohan's expression was very serious. However, there were many indescribable emotions within the seriousness. My guess is the same. Tamono Kakazi nodded her head. However, she immediately shook her head. However, this is only my guess. I do not know what the situation is. You can only rely on yourself. You must enter this instance dungeon yourself to find the truth. I understand. Thank you. Gohan stood up and thanked Tamono Kakazi. It seemed that Gohan had to enter this instance dungeon no matter what. This made Gohan even more curious about I Ching. This heaven-shrouding Jindy had actually predicted this moment 700 years ago. Then, he had planted the foreshadowing in Tamono Kakazi's body and waited for this day to erupt. After thinking about it carefully, he realized something even more terrifying. Tamono Kakazi had discovered the abnormality in the system 10 minutes ago. She believed that before that, there should not have been any abnormalities in this instance dungeon. This was like a time bomb that was set to explode 10 minutes ago. If that was the case, then didn't this mean that the heaven-shrouding Jindy from 700 years ago had actually predicted this matter to the minute level? He knew 700 years ago that after 7:42 p.m. on the 21st of October, 3008 AD, he would come for a date with Tamono Kakazi. Thinking about it, it was simply hair-raising. Chapter 720. You're back. Eat something. Seeing that Gahan had returned home, Yuang happily brought out a plate of pastries for Gahan. Gahan picked up a piece of pastry and put it in her mouth. Then, she waved her hand, indicating for Yuang to take away the rest of the pastries and let her sit beside him. Yuang, sit here properly. I have something very important to tell you. What is it? Is it? Seeing Gohan's cautious expression, Yuang vaguely guessed that something terrible was about to happen to her. Next, Gahan told Yuang everything, including how she tried her best to stop Ku-Rock-in, but in the end, she failed because of the mysterious Yuan Ko. While listening to Gahan's narration, Yuang, who was sitting upright, gradually curled up into a ball. She was like a hedgehog that was extremely afraid. Yuang's entire body was trembling. She clearly knew what it meant for her main body to be synchronized by other sword-bearers. It's all your fault. It's all your fault, you bastard. Why did you have to stab him with such a heartless sword? Yuang lay in Gohan's arms and hit Gohan's chest. Otherwise, she didn't know how to release the fear in her heart. You bastard, you beast. What should I do? Am I going to leave you soon? I really don't want to leave you. Can you think of a way to let me die? Yuang's words were like sharp knives stabbing into Gohan's heart, making Gohan speechless. Yuang, listen to me. Things aren't that bad yet. We can still fight one last time. Gohan hugged Yuang tightly in his arms and looked at her panicked and lifeless eyes. He said calmly and with a sense of security. Thus, Gohan told her about his plan to separate Yuang's consciousness fragment and let her temporarily live in an independent virtual space, as well as the conversation with Tamono Kakazi. Then I won't be locked up in jail. Hearing Gohan's plan, King Yu's expression was a bit gloomy, and I'm going to be locked up in prison for the rest of my life, never to come out. Wouldn't I be even more miserable? Gohan was silent for a while, because he understood that things were just as King Yu said. Even if his plan succeeded, King Yu would live in a small virtual space and no longer merge with his main body. That was no different from a prison. King Yu definitely could not leave that virtual space for even a second, or else what awaited King Yu was the shattering of his consciousness. I promise, I'll spend at least 8 hours every day. No, 4 hours. No, 5 hours in the virtual space with you. Gohan squeezed King Yu's hand. From the constant changes in time, it could be seen how extravagant it was for Gohan to spend 5 hours with King Yu every day. That virtual space was not a game world. It could allow Gohan to improve his sword essence in the game. In that world, other than accompanying King Yu, Gohan could not do anything else. To put it bluntly, these 5 hours were completely wasted. 24 hours a day was equivalent to wasting 1/5 of Gohan's life. What's the difference? A cage is a cage after all. Whether you're here or not, it's still a cage. King Yu smiled miserably. You should let me die. Let me end myself right now. Otherwise, once I return to my main body, my current memories and feelings will become an even more laughable joke. Pa! Before King Yu could finish, he was slapped in the face. However, the one who was slapped was not Gohan, but Juzi, who had been silent all this time. You! King Yu touched his face, not knowing what kind of expression he should show. If I have to die, I'll die first. Juzi, who had been as obedient as an artificial sword lady, looked at the King of Yu with an empty gaze. After that, she turned around and walked away. The entire process was a little strange. Juzi's slap was also a little strange. What the hell is this? King Yu could not understand the current situation. He could not understand why Juzi slapped him. I let her down. Looking at Juzi's back, Gohan's face was filled with shame. She's also my famous sword maiden in the real world? What? King Yu raised his head in shock and looked at Gohan in disbelief. You already have a famous sword maiden in the real world. I had no choice. It was all for Yuzhong City. Gohan sighed, then told him everything about Juzi's sword. Yuzhong City was facing a life and death crisis. If I didn't coordinate with Juzi, then there would have been no Yuzhong City in this world 20 days ago. My 40 million people would have turned into a pile of bones. I had no other choice. At that time, I thought I could find green hair sever and sever my Juzi sword marks, then coordinate with you, so I didn't tell you about this. I didn't expect things to turn out like this. Things in this world really shouldn't be calculated. Gohan shook his head helplessly. Pa! As if returning the favor, another slap landed on Gohan's face. Gohan did not dodge because it was King Yu who slapped him. You idiot, big pervert. King Yu's eyes were filled with tears. You actually wanted to use green hair sever to sever Juzi's sword marks. Do you know how cruel this is to Juzi? You might even destroy Juzi's life. You're worse than a pig or a dog. Someone like you want to sweep away Yuan Ko and become a hero that saves humanity. Are you worthy? King Yu's words made Gohan even more speechless. Besides remaining silent, Gohan couldn't say anything. Are the three of you acting in a primetime love triangle family drama? Itian and Guyun each held a dozen pastries in their hands as they sat shoulder to shoulder in front of Gohan's group. They nibbled on the pastries while watching Gohan's group perform. In the end, it was Guyun who couldn't help but interrupt. Her interruption made King Yu feel awkward. However, it helped King Yu get rid of his painful emotions. Continue. I'm having fun watching this. Hurry up and continue. Itian poured a mouthful of wine into her mouth and swallowed it along with the pastries stuck in her mouth. With Itian's words, King Yu definitely wouldn't continue. Gohan secretly gave Itian a thumbs up. Then, he grabbed King Yu's hand and walked to Juzi's side. Then, he grabbed Juzi's hand and took a deep breath. His expression instantly became serious and domineering. Let the past be the past. From now on, I won't give up on any of you. It doesn't matter if you're willing or not. King Yu, I will keep you by my side forever, until the day I die. As you wish. King Yu's voice was as soft as a mosquito. Rise from the Ground Instance Dungeon was a relatively unpopular instance dungeon among the famed Sword Instance dungeons. Due to the dungeon's boring content and long duration, the dungeon did not drop many rewards. Hence, this dungeon was not very popular. Aside from few players determined to clear every dungeon, very few players attempted this dungeon. The story of Rise from the Ground took place 54 years after the hero's Rise from the Ground dungeon. In history, it was also in this year that Shrouding the Heavens, who had been G&D for 10 years, officially announced to all humans that he would build a brand new human base city on the ruins of NC City. He gave his base a resounding name, Yuzhong City. The phrase "rise from the ground" was used to describe the story of a huge base city that could accommodate 20 million people rising from the ruins in a short period of 10 years. When Gohan's vision was restored, he saw a bustling scene. Countless humans were working hard on the ruins. Most of them were only using simple tools in their hands to work. Other than that, Gohan could vaguely see a few excavators waving their giant arms in the distance. Other than that, there were no other heavy construction machines. Is this how Yuzhong City looked like when it was built? If it was not for the fact that the history books had repeated it over and over again, even Gohan would not believe that Yuzhong City was built with such simple tools. According to the statistics in the history books, it was said that in the early stages of Yuzhong City's construction, humans' industrial capabilities had yet to fully recover. They were unable to mass-produce large-scale construction machines. Thus, at that time, Jitian Jindy only managed to gather less than 100 construction machines. After 5 years, Jitian Jindy increased the number of construction machines to 1,000. According to historical records, in the 4th year of the construction of Yuzhong City, the foundation of this huge base city, which could accommodate 20 million people, was completely built. This was completely relying on the strength of human hands. It could be said to be a miracle in human history. The beginning of the Rise from the Ground Instance Dungeon was the initial stage of this miracle. The scene that Gohan saw was the scene of the first residents of Yuzhong City working hard for their future home. System notification. Player Military Governor. Welcome to the Rise from the Ground Instance Dungeon. Quest objective. Help Jitian Jindy build Yuzhong City until Jitian Jindy is satisfied. Please note, you have a total of 40 hours. Within these 40 hours, once Jitian Jindy's touched by the sky, reaches a basic level of approval, you may exit the instance dungeon. At the same time, you may challenge for a higher level of approval. Your evaluation for the instance dungeon will be based on Jitian Jindy's touched by the sky. System notification. Quest 1 has been updated. First time here. Find the person in charge of this construction site and accept the quest from the person in charge. Gain their approval and have the person in charge introduce you to Jitian Jindy. Chapter 721. According to the quest requirements, Gohan needed to find the person in charge of the construction site. In fact, the person in charge was not difficult to find because he was standing in the most conspicuous position. There was a high platform in the middle of the construction site, and there seemed to be something lying on the platform. Gohan walked to the side of the platform expressionlessly. Only then did we realize that it was not something lying on the platform, but a person. But the person's posture was very strange. He was kneeling in a very strange position. His hands were crossed and placed on top of his head like a pillow. His tongue was sticking out, and he looked like a dog. Yes, that's right, he looked like a dog because he was originally a dog. Our Gohan's good friend and subordinate, the great U-level Yuan Ko, the Egyptian god of death, the ruler of hell, his majesty Anubis, was lying on the ground like a dog. Who asked him to be a dog? It was not strange for Anubis to appear here. He was originally Yuan Ko, who was controlled by Jitian. Gohan remembered that Isis had looked at the entrance of the Emergency Response Center with nostalgia and said that she was the one who built it. So when Yuzhong City was built, the 3 Egyptian gods had also contributed a lot. Woof! Perhaps sensing that a stranger had appeared beside it, Anubis retracted its tongue and straightened its body. It opened its hazy eyes and slowly looked at Gohan. Human, Has Lord Anubis seen you somewhere before? That was the first thing Anubis said. He felt that he had seen Gahan somewhere before, but his memory was a little vague, so he could not be sure. These words shocked Guhan. Anubis had indeed seen him before. Back then, he was the one who had found Anubis in the first temple. But that was something that had happened in the instance dungeon and had not happened in the real world. Anubis should have never seen him before, but he felt that he was familiar. Didn't that mean that he still remembered what had happened in the temple? But where did his memory come from? Was it from the hero's rise from insignificance, instance dungeon? Or did it come from the mysterious reality? Or is this just a trap that I Ching had dug? It seems that the truth can only be revealed when I see I Ching. Gahan glanced at Anubis. He did not expect to get any useful information from the husky. If he could see I Ching in this instance dungeon, he might be able to find out more. If Gahan wanted to see I Ching, he would have to follow the system's procedures and complete the quest that the husky had given him. So Gahan touched the husky's head. Lord Anubis, I'm a sword bearer from Yinjing City. The Yinjing City Sword Committee has ordered me to help Lord Heaven Shrouding Sword Emperor build this great city. If there's anything you need me to do, just tell me. I promise to complete the task. Nice. Your touch is so nice. Oh, whoa. Unexpectedly, Guhan's action of patting the husky's head made the husky feel very comfortable. Its whole body softly lay back on the ground and whimpered in enjoyment. After all, the husky had the bloodline of a wolf, so it was not strange for it to howl. Lord Anubis, stop joking around. Hurry up and give me the quest. Guhan secretly gathered a small amount of sword energy on his fingertip and stabbed the husky's butt. The husky immediately jumped up as if it had taken a stimulant and looked around vigilantly. Who is it? Who is plotting against the Great Grim Reaper? Ahem, Great Grim Reaper, hurry up and give me the quest. Guhan coughed hard, indicating that he was waiting for the husky to give him the quest. Quest. Let me see what quest I can give you. The husky was very distressed. How would it know what quest to give to Gahan? The quest that he was doing now was given to him by Isis. That's right. The Great Grim Reaper's workers have not eaten bones. No, meat with bones for more than 30 days. The Grim Reaper has heard that there is a herd of bison nearby. There are a lot of bison with thick bones. Go and catch 10 for the Grim Reaper. System prompt. Quest 1 has been completed. You have accepted the quest. System prompt. Quest 2 has been updated. Replenish food. The workers have not eaten meat for a long time, and their bodies have become weak. Please capture 10 bison and bring them to the person in charge to replenish their strength. Anyone who played online games would know that this was a very normal quest. Almost all online games would have such a quest. It was a simple quest to kill monsters. Although the Rise from the Ground dungeon was not very popular, there have been tens of thousands of strategy guides posted on the forum over the past 200 years. Before entering the dungeon, Gahan had carefully read through a few of the strategy guides with the highest number of likes. He was very familiar with the general process of the Rise from the Ground dungeon. According to the strategy guides, the husky would randomly give the player 3 different quests. The player would have to kill 10 bison, 10 boars, or 10 antelopes. In short, they were all related to food, which was very much in line with the husky's character. From this, it could be seen that although the husky found Gahan familiar, it did not change the normal process of the dungeon. The quests given to Gahan were exactly the same as the others. From this point, it could be seen that the dungeon had not changed. Yuan-Ko's hatred seemed to be relative to humans. For animals other than humans, Yuan-Ko did not kill them. Of course, there were some Yuan-Ko who would kill other animals because they were hungry, but most of the time, they lived in harmony with the animals. Therefore, after the apocalypse, the wildlife resources in some areas were restored to a considerable extent. After some domestic cattle were freed from human control, they returned to the bison of their ancestors and formed herds of bison that were scattered in various areas around Yuzhong City. However, what was ironic was that after Yuzhong City was established, and the area within 200 kilometers of Yuzhong City was once again under control, these bison herds once again disappeared. They either became food for humans or became domestic cattle in the hands of humans, waiting to be slaughtered. From this point of view, the invasion of Yuan Han was probably a good thing for animals. Dealing with bison was not difficult for a famed sword-level swordwoman. Any famed sword-level sword mistress could slaughter the entire herd with a few slashes. However, this quest was still difficult because there was a 5-color divine cow in this herd of bison. Just from the name, it was obvious that this 5-colored sacred bull was not a simple bull. It was a Yuan Ko, a powerful flood dragon Yuan Ko. Yuan Ko name, 5-colored sacred bull. Level, flood dragon. World of 2-dimensional, Eastern Demon Realm. Instance dungeon, China Instance dungeon. HP, 4, 5 stars. Attack, 3 stars. Agility, 2 stars. Demonic power, 3 stars. Ability, bull's horns can launch attacks of the 5 elements. Running speed is very fast. When running at full speed, it can reach a speed of 400 kilometers per hour. Ultimate skill, 5-colored sacred light, giant horn charge, cloud riding mist. Description: the 5-colored sacred bull is the mount of the dragon Yuan Ko Huang Feihu. It is inseparable from Huang Feihu. The appearance of the 5-colored sacred bull here means that Huang Feihu may also be nearby. Please be careful. No one knew why the 5-colored sacred bull would appear in a herd of ordinary bison, but Gahan was not interested in finding out. This was just a quest obstacle designed by the system. Otherwise, it would be too easy to complete the quest after killing 10 bison. Because the opponent was just a simple flood dragon Yuan Ko, Gahan did not take the 5-colored sacred bull seriously. If time allowed, Gahan wanted to release King Yu and use the 5-colored sacred bull to train his sword skills. Unfortunately, Gahan did not have the time. He had to speed up the process of the instance dungeon and find I Ching as soon as possible. He had to find out the secret I Ching left in this instance dungeon and figure out what he should do to keep King Yu by his side. No one knew when Ku Rakin would bring King Yu's Jian's main body into the game. Gahan had to seize every second. Go Dot, the 5-color divine ox, who was leisurely eating grass, suddenly had its horns flash with 5-colored light. The 5-color divine ox raised its head in fear and found that there were 5 streams of sword chi flying towards its head. 5-colored sacred light. Of course, the 5-colored sacred bull could not speak and naturally could not say the name of the skill. It could only let out 2 fearful cries. Just treat it as saying the name of the skill. A 5-colored light shot out from the 5-colored divine bull's horns. If the sword wielder was hit by this light, not only would they suffer a lot of damage, their bodies would also be affected by any of the 5 statuses, which represented wood, fire, metal, earth, and water. A normal sword wielder at the famed sword level would be at a great disadvantage when facing the 5-color divine light. Unfortunately, the 5-color divine light had no meaning against Guhan. Guhan's 5 sword chis instantly pierced through the 5-color divine light. Then, it looked at the 5-color divine ox's body and instantly killed the flood dragon Yuan Shan. Seeing that its leader, the 5-colored sacred bull, had been reduced to pieces, the herd began to flee in panic. Guhan quickly shot out 10 more sword energies, accurately cutting the throats of the 10 strongest wild bulls. The frantic escape caused the blood of the 10 wild bulls to quickly flow out, and the blood that spurted out from the wounds on their necks became faster. In a short while, the 10 wild bulls fell to the ground because of the blood loss. They became Guhan's spoils of war and were put into Guhan's dimensional pocket. When he collected the bodies of the wild bulls, Gahan was somewhat surprised to find that the 10 wild bulls were all cows. There was not even a single bull. Seeing this, Guhan roughly knew why the 5-colored sacred bull had appeared in the herd of ordinary wild bulls. This is like a knife above your head. The ancients did not deceive me. Chapter 722. Completing this quest was not as simple as killing 10 cows and bringing them back. The strategy guide on the forum was very clear. Players had to choose healthy cows to bring back. This way, they would be able to gain Anubis's favor and receive a higher evaluation from him. It was said that this evaluation would also be extended to Jetian Jindi, which would allow Jetian Jindi's initial evaluation of the players to be higher. As expected, when Anubis saw Gahan take out 10 healthy cows from his dimensional pocket, a smile immediately appeared on his face. He touched the cow's bones and felt the thickness of the bones. He could not help but drool from the corner of his mouth. Very good, very good, very good. Although Anubis's words were directed at Gahan, his eyes were fixed on the cow. Everyone, stop for a moment. Come on my side. Anubis called all the surrounding workers to his side. He pointed at the 10 cows on the ground and said to the workers, "These will be your dinner tonight. You guys eat the meat, and I'll eat the bones." Anubis's words immediately moved the workers. What a great leader! Although he did not do much and only slept on the rocks. Perhaps it was because he was a leader, and a leader had to be a mental worker, not a physical one. Moreover, this leader knew how to share weal and woe with the workers. He gave the tastiest beef to the workers while he gnawed on the bones. What a great sentiment! Suddenly, the majority of the workers had a good impression of Anubis. This was something that Anubis did not expect. Do any of you know how to cook beef? Prepare the 10 cows for me. Remember to separate the meat from the bones. Do you understand? Anubis could not wait to eat the bone soup. Leader, cooking beef is very simple. We can do it. My family makes Lanzhou beef ramen. A worker who looked like he was from Xinjiang raised his hand and said, "But leader, if you give us a piece of beef, we can cook it. If you give us an entire cow, we will be at a loss. We will not be able to skin and remove the bones. We will need to find a professional butcher." Butcher? Anubis frowned and looked at the workers who had gathered around. There were quite a few of them. "Let me ask you, are any of you butchers?" The crowd was dead silent. It seemed that there was no butcher among the workers. This put Lalabes in a difficult position. Using his strength, it was not difficult to cut off these pieces of flesh. The difficult part was to completely separate the flesh and bones. "Woof!" Anubis barked in exasperation, then said to Gahan, "Forget it. You guys can do whatever you want. I'll take you to Jetian Jinni first." According to the guide, Gahan should follow Anubis's wishes and go to Jetian Jinni with him. This was Gahan's original mission. However, Anubis had lived in Gahan's house for more than 20 days. During these 20 days, Gahan and Anubis ate at the same table. Gahan more or less understood the husky's taste. Gahan knew that Anubis's taste was very unique. He liked to eat pure bones. If there was even a little bit of meat on the bones, he would not be happy. In the beginning, when Maiden deliberately did not clean the bones, she left a lot of meat on the bones. This was not because when Maiden was lazy. Just look at the menu, and you will know that there are no bones in the world. In the end, everyone else ate happily, except for Anubis, who was crestfallen when he saw the bone, his expression unfriendly. Only then did Gahan and the rest understand Anubis's preferences. From then on, when Maiden made bones for Anubis, she would always shave them cleanly, without leaving any meat on them. "Let me try." Gahan suddenly walked out of the crowd and picked up the Heaven-Reliant sword. Immediately, a wave of sword light enveloped all 40 oxen. The onlookers felt as if there were thousands of butterflies fluttering in front of them. In less than 5 seconds, all the butterflies had disappeared, and Gahan sheathed the heavenly sword back into its scabbard. What just happened? The onlookers looked at each other. They had roughly guessed that Gahan was performing a sword dance earlier. However, they did not know why Gahan had performed a sword dance. Could it be that he wanted to see them working hard? Could it be that he wanted to put on a show for them? Good sword technique. Anubis was the only one who had clearly seen Gahan's sword technique. He knew what Gahan had done. "Take all the meat away. Then, stew the bones for me." Anubis instructed excitedly. The onlookers responded. They picked up their kitchen knives and prepared to cut the meat. However, they were stopped by Anubis. "Why are you still using knives? Just take the meat away, Wolf." In desperation, Anubis barked again. Did the leader mean that the meat had already been cut? The onlookers were skeptical. However, since the leader had said so, they would do as the leader said. In any case, the leader would be the one to lose face, not them. Thus, the onlookers stepped forward and attempted to use their hands to pick up the meat from the cows. In an instant, all the meat on the 10 cows disappeared, leaving only their skeletons. After carefully inspecting the skeletons, the onlookers found that not a single piece of meat was left on the skeletons. Is this the legendary sword wielder? To think that a sword wielder could be this powerful. The way the onlookers looked at Gahan instantly changed. There was a look of worship in their eyes. In their eyes, Gahan was no longer an ordinary human. Rather, he was like a sword immortal. Good brother, I will bring you to meet Jetian Jindi. As Gahan had helped Anubis keep his skeletons intact, Anubis had quietly changed the way he addressed Gahan. That surprised Gahan. Why did he get the feeling that the Anubis in the instance dungeon was much smarter than the Anubis in the real world? In the real world, no matter how well you treat the husky, it would not give you a grateful look. At most, it would look at you as if you were an idiot. This was the second time Gahan had met Jetian Jindi in the instance dungeon. Gahan had thought that he would be able to see the gentle I Ching again. Unexpectedly, when he saw Jetian Jindi, he was no longer Jetian. Instead, he was an old man with a stern face and a beard that fluttered in the wind. However, he could faintly make out I Ching's face. This is how Jetian Jindi looks like in the history books. Gahan's heart skipped a beat. In fact, Gahan had already expected that the I Ching before him would look like a man, because that was how she looked in the history books. In the Heroes Begin with Insignificance Instance Dungeon, I Ching looked like a teenager. At that time, I Ching was thin and weak. It was not easy to determine her gender. Although it was not worth it, why did I Ching disguise herself as a man? But she must have her own reasons, so in front of outsiders, she would definitely dress up as a man. Perhaps after Anubis left, I Ching would reveal her true appearance. I Ching sat quietly on a rock, seemingly meditating. She did not even bat an eyelid when she saw Gahan enter, as if no one had entered at all. Boss, a swordsman from Yinjing City is looking for you. He said that he is here to support us. Tell him what you need to do. Anubis said to I Ching, Yinjing City is willing to send someone to me. Jetian Jindi finally opened his eyes and looked Gahan up and down, but there was no change in his eyes. It was as if he had never seen Gahan before. All right, since Yinjing City sent someone to give it to me, if I don't use it, it would be disrespecting the Yinjing City Sword Committee. Jetian Jindi raised his eyelids. I don't know when this list appeared in my hands. Take a look. The list in Jetian Jindi's hands began to move, even though there was no wind. Suddenly, it floated up and landed firmly in Gahan's hands. Gahan knew about this list. Every player who attempted this dungeon would receive this list. The list listed the tasks that Jetian Jindi needed players to do for him. As long as a player completed one of the tasks on the list, they would receive a certain amount of favorability from Jetian Jindi. You can complete the tasks from 1 to 10 on this list. Jetian Jindi said. The list was simply numbered, and there was a long list of tasks. There was a total of 60 tasks. However, the rewards of the tasks were not written on the list. Later, the players who studied the instance dungeon discovered that the quests numbered 1 to 10 on the list rewarded the least favorability points. Each quest only rewarded 0.2% favorability points. Tasks numbered 10 to 20 gave 0.5% favorability. Tasks numbered 20 to 30 gave 1% favorability, and tasks numbered 30 to 40 gave 2% favorability. The reward for missions 40 to 50 was 3% favorability. The favorability reward for missions 50 to 60 was unknown because from the beginning to the end, no player had been able to unlock missions 50 to 60. That's right. Aside from tasks numbered 1 to 10, the rest of the tasks on the list were locked. Only when a player's favorability with Jetian Jindi reached a certain value could they unlock the rest of the tasks. This was also the reason why mission 50 to 60 could not be unlocked. No matter how the previous players experimented, they could not reach the point where they could unlock mission 50 to 60. Even if there was an extremely overpowered player who used 39 hours to complete all of Mission 50 to 50, he still could not unlock Mission 50 to 60. The heaven-shrouding Sword Emperor's favorability towards him remained at the level of treating him like an arm. After handing the list to Gahan, Jatian Jiandi chased him away coldly. Get out now. Hurry up and complete the tasks. Don't waste time here. According to Guhan's original guess, since there was an anomaly in this instance dungeon, it was very likely that this instance dungeon was a backup plan that I Ching had left for him. When he met the heaven-shrouding Sword Emperor in the instance dungeon, it was possible that it would be similar to the instance dungeon Heroes Rise from Humble Beginnings. I Ching's consciousness in the game would automatically jump out to help him. At the very least, it would show him something special. To Guhan's disappointment, the process of the dungeon was exactly the same as in the guide. Jatian Jiani hadn't changed anything. Chapter 723. As Gahan was about to proceed with the quest list, Anubis suddenly spoke up. Boss, this swordsman's swordsmanship is quite good. He was able to separate the flesh and bones of 10 bison in 5 seconds. I think you should give him a more difficult quest. Is that so? Jatian Jiandi looked at Gahan in surprise. Then he nodded. Very well. You can complete the quest from 1 to 20 on this list. As a result, the quests from 10 to 20, which require the completion of the 5 quests from 1 to 10, were instantly unlocked. According to the guide, if the bison was strong enough, Anubis would say to Jatian Jiandi, "This fellow has good eyesight." Although the heaven-shrouding Sword Emperor's feelings would not change after Anubis finished speaking, the 5 quests that had to be completed would be reduced to 4. This was equivalent to increasing the heaven-shrouding Sword Emperor's favorability. Now, however, Gahan had unlocked quests from 10 to 20. This was something that had never happened in the guide. This meant that Guhan's initial favorability was higher than that of the other players. After that, Jatian Jiani lost interest in Gahan. Gahan tactfully took the quest list and left Jatian Jiandi's room. Gahan looked at the unlocked quests on the list. These quests were no different from the quests from 1 to 20 published in the guide. In fact, these 50 quests were fixed. Regardless of who it was, or how many times they had entered this instance dungeon, the quests on the list would remain the same. There would be no changes. According to his previous experience in the dungeon, if Gahan wanted to find the item left behind by I Ching, he would need to trigger the abnormal node of this dungeon. Before entering this dungeon, Gahan had speculated where the abnormal node of this dungeon would be. The abnormal node of the Wudong Peak instance dungeon was after Gahan kicked the old man off the cliff. The abnormal node of the Heroes Begin at the end instance dungeon was after he met Black Artoria. So, Gahan speculated that the Rise from the Ground instance dungeon should also have such an abnormal node. Among them, the one in Gahan's hand was the one in his hand. He felt that the quests he received would be different from the quests completed by other players. Now, it would appear that Gahan's guess was wrong. Up until now, Gahan had not received any special treatment in the dungeon, except for the quest from 10 to 20. However, that should be a hidden quest of the dungeon. This was a change brought about by Gahan's help in separating Anubis' flesh and blood. It was not an abnormality that existed in the first place. Quests from 1 to 10 on the list were very simple quests. According to the guide in the forum, quests from 1 to 10 would require him to face Yuan Ko, who was no higher than a ghost-class Yuan Ko. Even a sword-class swordsman could easily complete these quests. That did not mean that quests from 1 to 10 were easy. Some of these quests required a lot of time. For example, Quest 6. This quest required Gahan to help 4 workers dig out a foundation that was 100 meters long, 10 meters wide, and 3 meters deep. This was a very safe quest. He would not even be able to meet Yuan Ko. However, this quest required a lot of time. According to the forum, the fastest time to complete this quest was 1.5 hours. That was because the best tool to complete this quest was a sharp shovel. Players could bring other in-game items into the dungeon. For example, a player had brought an excavator into the dungeon in an attempt to drive the excavator to complete this quest. However, when the excavator appeared in the dungeon, Anubis appeared as well. Anubis then drove the excavator away, saying that the excavator was going to be used in a more important place. Even after the player left the dungeon, the excavator was not returned to the player. It was forcefully used up in the dungeon. After some experimentation, the player discovered that the best tool to use in this dungeon was a shovel. Any tool that was larger than a shovel would be forcefully taken away by Anubis. Therefore, players generally ignored this quest. After all, they only needed to complete 6 quests from the first to the 10th. This 6th quest, which was a waste of time, energy, and passion, was directly passed by most players. Only those with obsessive-compulsive disorder, the pursuit of perfection, or those who entered the dungeon with the goal of completing all the quests in the first place. Right now, time was the most precious thing for Gahan. The sooner he discovered the abnormality in the dungeon and found the method that I Ching left for him, the sooner he could extract the fragment of King Yu's will. Logically speaking, Gahan should not waste time on this quest 6. However, according to Gahan's analysis, the key to finding the abnormality in this dungeon was on the list. It was very likely that after he completed one of the quests on the list, the abnormality would appear on its own. Therefore, Gahan felt that it was necessary for him to complete all the quests on the list. First of all, Guhan chose to complete the digging mission on the 6th. For other players, this was a painful quest that required more than an hour and a half to complete. However, for Gahan, this was actually the easiest quest to complete. According to the hints on the quest list, Gahan found 4 workers who were silently digging. They were waving shovels and silently plowing the ground. However, their efficiency was very impressive. One shovel after another, they dug out a foundation that was 100 meters long, 10 meters wide, and 3 meters deep. By the time they dug out a foundation, it would probably be the next day. Move aside, leave this to me. Gahan, who did not want to waste time, quickly walked in between the 4 workers and interrupted their work. Who are you? Let you do it. Can you dig the entire foundation alone? The 4 workers who were interrupted by Gahan were very unhappy. One of the sturdiest workers scolded Gahan with a northeast accent. Another worker quickly pulled him back and whispered, "Don't be stubborn with him. I've seen this person before. He is the sword-bearer from Yinjing City. The sword-bearer who split the flesh of 10 wild oxen with just a few swings of his sword." The burly man was shocked. His neck shrank back, and his aura instantly weakened. "Sir, how can we trouble you with such a difficult task? Just leave it to us. After all, our lives depend on the protection of an important person like you." One of the workers came up to him in a fawning manner. How could they dare to let a sword-bearer help them dig a hole? "Say no more. This is a quest that I personally requested from His Majesty, Zhijiendi. Leave the foundation to me." Gohan glanced at the 4 workers from the corner of his eye. The 4 workers looked as if they had seen hell. They trembled in fear and stood there, not daring to say a word. 9 swords of mysterious heaven, sword in the field. Gohan stabbed the heavenly sword in his hand into the ground, and the only move in the 9 swords of mysterious heaven that could destroy the ground burst out instantly. The workers around Gahan suddenly felt the ground shake, as if an earthquake was coming. Just as they threw away the tools in their hands and were about to run away, the earthquake instantly stopped. What just happened? The workers asked each other in confusion. Then, someone with sharp eyes discovered that a large, deep pit had appeared at the center of the earthquake. The pit was filled with sharp stones. The workers gathered around, and one of them slapped his head and shouted, "I remember now. Isn't this place supposed to be digging a foundation? Is this the foundation that has already been dug? Did you deliberately dig out a pile of sharp stones when you were digging the foundation? This is obviously caused by the earthquake." Another worker said, unconvinced, all right, all of you, disperse and do your own things." At this time, Batet, who was pretending to be a cat, appeared out of nowhere and shouted at the onlookers. It was obvious that the workers were very afraid of Batet. As soon as Batet spoke, the workers did not dare to breathe and quickly returned to their posts. Only the 4 workers who were responsible for digging the pit were still standing there. "Did you guys dig this out? Baudet took a deep look at the stone forest and then asked the four workers. No, no. The four workers hurriedly waved their hands and pointed at Gahan, who was standing at the side, and said in unison, "It was dug out by the sword-bearer." In the end, the worker from the northeast thought for a moment and added, "It was dug out in an instant. You are the sword-bearer that Anubis praised so much." Bast took a deep look at Guhan. His eyes were a little playful, but he didn't say anything to Guhan. Instead, he ordered the four workers, "Why don't you go and measure the length, width, and depth of this pit? See if it meets the requirements of the foundation." Hearing Bastet's words, the four workers immediately ran at full speed. They picked up the measuring tools and began to measure the length, width, and depth of the pit. After a while, one of the workers ran over excitedly. "This sword-bearer is really amazing. It's just right. It's 100 meters long, 10 meters wide, and 3 meters deep. There's not even a meter of error." "That's interesting." Baudet walked to Gahan's side and gently patted Gahan's shoulder. His mouth moved closer to Gahan's ear and whispered to Gahan, "Did your father tell you? You look exactly like him when he was young." "My father?" Gahan was silent. He did not know how to ridicule Baudet. "Go tell your father not to get involved in this matter anymore. Since he has already left, he should not come back. His majesty is no longer the majesty of the past." After saying this somewhat inexplicable sentence, Baudet lazily left Gahan's side. "Is this the anomaly node?" Gahan's mouth showed a trace of doubt. "What do you mean by his majesty is no longer the majesty of the past?" "That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.